Chapter 706. It was so tragic. As the last remaining martial monarch from the Ao clan slowly fell, blood and snow splattered everywhere. Everything was like an unreal dream. The entire place was silent. Xie Danqiong, Ao Xieyun, Dong Wulei, and the rest couldn't help but tear up. I don't understand. Why? Why? We had already won. Why did the elder commit suicide? Ao Xieyun choked with sobs. Chu Yang's heart ached, but he forced himself to hold it in. He said, "You don't understand. But this is inevitable. When all his brothers died in front of him, when the last enemy died under his sword, if he was still alive, it would be the greatest torture for him. Because all the martial monarchs in the three heavens died in this battle. He was the only one left." Chu Yang said sorrowfully, "This is like the end of an era. They had been entangled with each other for a generation, but now he was the only one left alive. Can you imagine how lonely and miserable that was? Even if there was an enemy from the same generation left in this world, he wouldn't choose to commit suicide. But he really couldn't find a target. At his level, he had already seen through life and death. Before he died, he thought more thoroughly than us. So, there's no need to sigh or be sad." Chu Yang said solemnly, "I only wish for them to be able to meet again, be friends again, fight again, and be enemies again. Other than that, I have nothing else to say." Ao Xieyun and the rest were silent. After a moment of silence, Chu Yang and Mo Tianji both bowed deeply towards the mess of flesh and blood on the field. Their expressions were solemn. Then, more than 500 people on this side bowed at the same time. Then, everyone from the Ao clan, Xie clan, and Dong clan knelt down. This battle started quickly, and it ended even faster. There was almost no time for anyone to react. However, it was tragic and tragic to the extreme. Everyone's heart seemed to have been hit by a hammer. That kind of feeling. Then, Mo Tianji silently sent people to clean up the battlefield and escort the dead into the lake of despair. Dong Wulei, Dong Wushang, Ao Tianxing, Ao Xieyun, Xie Danqiong, and the rest went forward and cleaned up the remains. No matter if it was the enemies or their families. Everything was carried out in silence. The entire battlefield seemed to be a silent and sorrowful pantomime. Tomorrow morning, the battle between saints. When the white-bearded man uttered these words, his voice was somewhat hoarse. Tomorrow would be the battle that would determine the final outcome, although there were only two enemies left. However, if Juqiu were to be defeated, Chu Yang's side would also be in an unimaginable situation. Unless the Calamity Sword spirit intervened or the Demon King was awakened, no one would be able to resist the saint level. Tonight was destined to be a sleepless night. "Brother Yu, what do you think?" Chu Yang stood beside Juqiu with his hands clasped behind his back. "He can't kill me." Juqiu stared at the faintly discernible green figure in front of him and said faintly, "Even I may not be able to kill him. The feeling he gives me is that he should also be a third-stage martial saint. At the same level as me," Juqiu said calmly. "Oh." Chu Yang was a little shocked. That should be the case. While I was looking at him, he was also looking at me. And now, his feelings should be the same as mine. Juqiu smiled and said, "What we have in common is that I don't want to die, neither does he. But this is a battle of life and death. I'm here to help, so is he. We both have concerns in our hearts, but we both have the confidence to win. Therefore, I only have the confidence to win tomorrow's battle. Presumably, the other party's chances of winning won't be higher or lower than mine." Juqiu stared at the green figure in front of him through the vast snow and said slowly. Just as he finished speaking, which was also when he made an accurate estimation of the other party's strength, the green figure in front of him quietly disappeared. He left. Juqiu was sizing him up, but wasn't he sizing up Juqiu too? Now, the two of them already had an idea of each other. Chu Yang smiled gently and said, "However, I think that the two of you are different." "Oh." Juqiu tilted his head. "Firstly, we won the previous 3 battles. Secondly, the experts brought by this martial saint from the She clan are all dead. Even if he returns alive, the She clan will hold him responsible for the loss of so many experts this time. After all, it's because of his personal grudges that caused these losses. There's only one person beside him, but behind you, there's all of us. This is bullying him with numbers. Even if we don't want to bully him, he's already a little weaker psychologically. This is one of your advantages. Chu Yang said. You're right. Duke Yu pondered for a while. His people are all dead. It's inevitable that he'll feel grief and anger, and even worry about going back. You don't have any of these. This is your second advantage. That's right. Duke Yu's eyes lit up. Besides, he came to the three heavens with a mission given to him by his clan. Now, he's still worried about his gains and losses, and how to complete the mission. You don't have any of these. This is your third advantage. That's right. A smile appeared in Duke Yu's eyes. Of course, the most important point is that although he's from the She clan of the upper three heavens, don't forget that his soul and spirit have long been bound by the She clan. It can be said that he's a slave of the She clan, and brother Yu, you're his own master. A soul that's free and independent is definitely different from a soul that's been under the control of others for a long time. This is your fourth advantage. Chu Yang said slowly. That's right. Duke Yu agreed once again. So, brother Yu, you have so many advantages, and this is the three heavens. It's as if the time, place, and people are all on your side. Although your cultivation is similar, the gap between you has already widened. If you can't kill him beautifully tomorrow, I'll look down on you. Don't even think about dying in battle or perishing together with the enemy. Chu Yang said lightly. Duke Yu suddenly laughed heartily, shaking his head as he laughed. He laughed so hard that tears almost came out of his eyes. He seemed incomparably happy. Chu Yang was stunned for a moment. Why did this guy suddenly go crazy? I've always been sure that I'll win against my enemies, Duke Yu said deeply, revealing an arrogant smile. This battle is the same, not to mention that he's only a third-grade martial saint. Even if he's a fourth-grade martial saint, I'm confident that I can kill him. Although I'm only a third-grade martial saint, but the millions of years of the fairy clan's heritage is gathered in me. What is he? Then why did you? Chu Yang was dumbfounded. It wasn't because Duke Yu said that he wasn't sure, but because Duke Yu finally revealed his origin for the first time. Fairy clan. The only remaining fairy in the Double Heavens continent. So this was Duke Yu's real origin. He couldn't care less about how mysterious he was to this extent. But, Chu Yang still didn't know how Duke Yu could have such heaven-defying abilities even if he knew about it. If he were to say that everything was self-taught, that was really unbelievable. Ha ha. Duke Yu laughed strangely and said with some satisfaction, in this world, there's actually someone who truly cares about me and encourages me. Haha, this feeling is really funny. How old am I already? But, I've lost this bet with Jun Shizhu. I'm depressed. Duke Yu said that he was depressed. But, he laughed out loud. Then, his figure flashed, and disappeared without a trace. Chu Yang thought for a long time and finally scolded with a smile, so this bastard was testing me. At this time, he still has such strange ideas. Shaking his head, he got up and left. The next day, the sun rose. The sky was clear and bright. At the peak of the mountain, there were actually thousands of rays of light. Ao Tianxing looked at the rising sun and muttered, the sun rose again, but the ancestors can't see it anymore. Everyone sighed with emotion. The crowd separated, and Duke Yu walked over leisurely with his long green robe fluttering in the wind. Pay attention to the supreme stone tablet, Mo Tianji said in a low voice, or, use the supreme stone tablet. Duke Yu's expression didn't change. His gaze flashed, and he walked out as if he didn't hear anything. On the opposite side, the martial saint from the She clan had also appeared. Coincidentally, the two Earth Sage Realm experts were both dressed in green today, just like the day before. Shi Chang Feng. Duke Yu placed his hands behind his back and took a step forward. He only took a light step forward, but his entire body seemed to have shrunk to the center of the battlefield. Duke Yu. Shi Chang Feng's pupils shrank. He suddenly felt that his opponent today was different from yesterday. But he didn't want to be outdone, and he took a step forward. Shi Chang Feng, to be able to die in my hands, you're considered a powerful person. Shi Chang Feng, you're glorious even though you're dead. Duke Yu laughed elegantly. He sounded as if he was sincerely congratulating Shi Changfeng. To be able to die in my hands, your life isn't in vain. Shi Changfeng's eyes flashed with a sinister look as he said sinisterly. That's why I said you're useless. You even have to learn how to speak from me. Elder, you mocked, if I call you, you'll call me. Whatever I say, you'll repeat. Shi Changfeng, you're a martial sage. Can't you be a little more creative? Words can't determine the outcome of a battle, Shi Changfeng said sinisterly. But a battle of words is directly related to one's intelligence. If you can't even win a battle of words, why are you still competing with me? Duke Yu's words were as sharp as knives. There's no point in talking so much. Let's fight. Shi Changfeng squinted, and his gaze shot out. Evidently, he wanted to kill. Duke Yu let out a long howl. Wearing a green robe with long sleeves, he flew up high into the sky like a rocket. Then, he chanted loudly, I am the king of the 8 desolations, I am the king of the 10,000 rivers and mountains. He laughed plainly and said, Shi Changfeng, come up and accept your death. Chapter 707. A battle between martial saints was different from a battle between martial emperors and martial monarch. Even a battle between martial monarchs wouldn't be able to destroy anything here. After all, this was a battlefield where martial saints had fought before. But a battle between martial saints could destroy this place beyond recognition. Hence, Duke Yu rose into the sky before the battle even started. He flew into the sky to challenge his opponent. He limited the battlefield to the sky. Whoever fell down would be the loser. Seeing how domineering Duke Yu was as he flew up into the sky, a trace of admiration appeared in the eyes of the few cultivators. Martial artists had no reservations. If they wanted to kill, they would kill. If they wanted to fight, they would fight. But Duke Yu chose to fight in the sky, which was more difficult. He didn't want to destroy the remains of the martial saint. This was out of respect for the strong. It was also out of respect for his own martial path. Only with respect could one have a future. If a person didn't respect his own goal, then he didn't respect himself at all. If he didn't respect himself, how could he achieve the highest success? Chu Yang was also thinking about these words in his heart. He seemed to have understood something. After this, Chu Yang suddenly discovered a fact that he didn't notice and completely ignored. Ever since he came here, the sword spirit had been silent. He hadn't spoken a single word from the start till now. Chu Yang's heart skipped a beat. He tried to summon him. The sword spirit seemed to have just woken up from a long sleep. He said in a weak and feeble voice, Lord Sword Master, everything depends on you. After this, he became silent again. Chu Yang's heart jerked. A sense of worry surged in his heart. At this point, Shi Changfeng shouted and unsheathed his sword. As he waved his sword in the wind, he followed behind Elder Yu like a shooting star and charged into the sky. Everyone lifted their heads at the same time. In the sky, the two of them were 7 feet apart. They stood steadily, as if they were standing on flat ground. Shi Changfeng was tall. His beard swayed in front of his chest. He held a sword in his right hand and placed his left hand behind his back. His gaze was sharp, and his sword radiance was cold. His green robe swayed in the wind. He looked like an expert. Duke Yu placed his hands behind his back. He was empty-handed. His expression was calm and proud. He looked at Shi Changfeng. His gaze was as calm as an ancient well. Duke Wei, are you going to fight me empty-handed? Shi Changfeng furrowed his brows and asked. He was a little happy in his heart. If you are arrogant and fight empty-handed, then your little one will be finished today. This Duke has never underestimated any enemy. Duke Yu smiled faintly. Even if the enemy in front of me is a tortoise, I will not let my guard down. Shi Changfeng was so furious that his eyes almost popped out. He took in a deep breath and gritted his teeth. What are you waiting for? Duke Yu gently smiled and slowly shook his head. Then, he elegantly said, since you can't wait to die, this Duke will fulfill your wish. As he spoke, he took out his hands from behind his back. Her fingers were white and empty. However, in the next moment, Duke Yu drew a semicircle with his right hand and grabbed outwards diagonally. Clang! He actually pulled out a long sword from the void. The blade of the sword was like rippling autumn waters. The sword was 3 feet long and emitted a cold light in all directions. As he held the sword horizontally, Duke Yu's gaze was deep as he said, "Buddy, I've let you down today. The opponent is only a weak piece of trash, but you have to deal with him personally. I'm very sorry." Shi Feng was so furious that his stomach was about to explode. His long sword flashed and he charged over. Duke Yu laughed and flew up diagonally. Following this, he bent his body in midair and his head was below his feet. His sword radiance was like a dome as it came crashing down. Shi Feng shouted, "Good timing." He raised his long sword to meet him. When one reached the martial sage level, it was no longer important whether one was holding a divine weapon or not. Everything was turned into a sharp sword by one's cultivation. Like a bolt of lightning, the two swords met in midair. Boom! As the two thin swords came into contact, the sound that was produced was like two mountains colliding in midair. It was as loud as a huge bell. The entire heaven and earth seemed to darken. Powerful auras shot in all directions. The accumulated snow on the ground flew into the air and covered the entire sky. Under this one strike, the clear sky turned into a snowy sky. As the snowflakes flew in the sky, the two figures approached each other at lightning speed. One of their swords was like a bolt of lightning, while the other was like a thunderbolt. The two streaks of sword radiance intersected in midair to form the shape of a cross. It was still flashing and dazzling, but the two of them had already soared into the sky. After this, they continued to fight for a few thousand feet. Streaks of sword light and sword flowers kept appearing in the air. However, the moment they appeared, the two people who were fighting were definitely no longer there. The snow on the ground kept on jumping up and down. It was so thick that one couldn't even see their own fingers. This was even more intense than an avalanche caused by a landslide. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Their left hands clashed in midair. The two of them groaned at the same time and were sent flying backward. Instantly, a ferocious force scattered in all directions. The lake of death, which was as smooth as a mirror, was stirred up by this strong wind. Suddenly, monstrous waves surged up into the sky with a loud splash. It was as if a huge dragon had burst out of the lake of death and broke through the sky. It carried an unparalleled aura as it created rain in midair. In the sky, Duke Yu let out a long howl. His two legs took a step forward, and he actually ran quickly through the void. In just a few steps, he arrived above the lake of death. He waved his hands, and a strange green mist suddenly filled the sky. The flowing water seemed to be able to understand human language. It gathered towards Elder Yu's palms on its own. In the next moment, the flowing water condensed in midair and turned into a huge sword that was 100 feet wide, 50 feet wide and 50 feet long. The tip of the sword shone with a cold radiance. It was as if it wanted to slice open the heavens and the earth. Duke Yu bellowed, "Go!" As he shook his arms, this huge longsword howled as it charged towards Shi Feng. This wasn't a slash, or a stab. It was a direct attack. Shi Feng's beard flew into the air as he shouted coldly. Suddenly, he flew backwards. As he retreated, his right hand that was holding onto his sword started to swing crazily. Sword chi surged in the sky. Bright sword chi intersected with one another and appeared in the sky. After this, the sword aura didn't disappear. All the sword aura formed a huge sword. After this, Shi Feng stopped retreating. The sword seemed to be extremely heavy as he pushed it forward very slowly. He exhaled and shouted, "Destroy!" The huge sword formed from sword radiance let out a sword hum and flew out. It flew faster and faster. It fiercely collided with Duke Yu's huge sword made of waves in the air. It was as if two planets had collided. Oh no! The white-bearded cultivator quickly opened his hands. His vigorous vital energy engulfed the icy platform that he was on. The many powerful cultivators from the aristocratic families also tried to protect themselves. Following this huge storm came crashing down. Suddenly, rocks flew everywhere and waves crashed against the shore. Thousands of snowflakes were swept up. The snowflakes rose into the air and formed the shape of a mushroom cloud. Chu Yang and the rest were watching the battle. When they saw this situation, Chu Yang had an idea. He shouted, "Everyone, circulate your powers. Hold hands and resist." Everyone followed his instructions. Just as they held hands, the storm came crashing down on them. With a boom, everyone was swept up and flung 400 feet away. Everyone was drenched in sweat in an instant. Tian Biu Hui was in an even worse state. He screamed and flew up. He became a small black dot in the distance. With a plop, he fell into the lake of death. Everyone crawled up pathetically. However, they were in a daze. They couldn't even see their own fingers. They could only hear whoosh whoosh whoosh, boom boom boom, boom boom boom. Evidently, the two of them were still fighting in mid-air. After a long while, the snow started to fall. Their vision became clearer. Everyone immediately raised their heads to look at it. They saw that dozens of Elder Yu and Shi Changfeng had appeared in mid-air. Each of them wielded a sword and were fighting one-on-one. Chu Yang focused and looked up. He was relieved. No matter how Elder Yu's movements changed, he was still standing above the lake of death. Shi Changfeng could only face Elder Yu's attacks. He was facing the lake of death. One was facing the other, while the other was facing the other. This was very clever. Duke Yu laughed and said indifferently, "The experts of the Shi family of the upper three heavens are indeed extraordinary." Shi Changfeng snorted and said, "Elder Yu from the dark bamboo is also not to be underestimated." Duke Yu chuckled. His laughter was very gentle and carefree. It was like a gentle breeze blowing through the bamboo forest. Although it made a rustling sound, it made people feel peaceful and relaxed. Following this, Elder Yu said softly, "However, how can the Shi clan compare to me?" His silhouette flashed, and he suddenly traversed through the air, flying all the way. He actually kept all the after-images he had created, and he was the only one left in the air. Then, a faint flush appeared on his fair face as he shouted, "The real attack is coming." He clapped his palms together and a crisp sound could be heard. It was as if he had suddenly crushed space, and 7 black holes appeared in the air at the same time. Following this, the water of the lake of death rose from all directions. There were 7 streams of lake water. They carried warm air with them as they flew 800 feet into the sky. They turned into 7 huge swords. They attacked at the same time. A scream could be heard in mid-air. Chu Yang focused and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He saw that the tip of one of the 7 swords was actually a person, Tian Biu Hui. He had just fallen into the middle of the lake of death. Just as he was about to swim up, Elder Yu seemed to have treated him as water and swept him up. He was used as a weapon. At this moment, Tian Gong's hands were tightly pressed against his waist. His legs were tightly pressed together and his neck was stubbornly stiff. His entire body was like an arrow released from a bow. With a momentum that could chase the wind and break the clouds, with a speed faster than lightning, he brought along a giant sword formed by endless streams of water. He was attacking Shi Changfeng, Tian Biu Hui's adoptive father. Chu Yang guessed that elder Tian Biu Hui had never unleashed such speed in his entire life. Fuck. His flying through the air. Tian Biu Hui is truly amazing, Jimo exclaimed. Chapter 708. The outcome of this battle was clear. There was no way to not be clear. One side was already dead. How could they not accept it? Just as Duke Yu had said, not a single one of them came out. We won. Mo Tianji looked at the white-haired enforcer who was already standing on the ground. That's right. The enforcer's expression was a little complicated. As an enforcer, he had fought countless battles in his life. Furthermore, all of them happened in the upper 3 heavens. It could be said that every battle was much more intense than this one. The people who participated in the battles were also much more powerful than the people who were fighting in this battle. However, this battle in the upper 3 heavens was filled with an indescribable feeling. The battle is over. We have won. Mo Tianji smiled and said, however, I still want to ask the enforcers something. Regarding the sudden appearance of monarch-level experts, emperor-level experts, and saint-level experts. Does anyone have any questions? What is the reason for these experts who should not have appeared in the upper 3 heavens to appear out of nowhere? He laughed and said, of course, they are already dead. There is no point in saying more. However, if this goes on for a long time, and the heavens can interfere as they wish, the lower 3 heavens and the upper 3 heavens will become a mess. I am very suspicious about the purpose of the Enforcer's existence. Mo Tianji stood proudly and said indifferently, Lord Enforcer. Ha ha ha, the white-haired Enforcer's face turned red. He glared fiercely at Shi Chengyu. If not for your Shi clan, why would we be insulted and not be able to say anything? I will settle this matter with your clan when we return. Shi Chengyu's face turned red. His eyes flashed with anger as he said, Nonsense. Those people just now were indeed from the Shi clan. However, they were all acting out of personal grievances. They had no choice but to act. Furthermore, they are already dead. What's so honorable about slandering a dead man like this? I did not say that I was honorable. Mo Tianji said indifferently, however. No matter whether it is personal grievances or national grievances, the laws of the heavens are the laws of the heavens. In the laws of the heavens, it doesn't say that you can interfere with private grudges. However, the laws of the heavens didn't say that we can't interfere with private grudges. Shi Chengyu sneered. Mo Tianji still said indifferently, regarding the heavenly laws, you should discuss it with the enforcers, not me, Mo Tianji. I'm very sorry. I'm not familiar with the laws of the firmament. Shi Chengyu was stunned. Only then did he realize that there was something wrong with the way the 3 law enforcement officers looked at him. His face immediately paled, and his body began to tremble. Suddenly, it was too late for regrets. He knew that he had fallen into Mo Tianji's trap. Everything that Mo Tianji had done was just to lead him to say this sentence. The laws of the heavens did not say that private grudges could not be interfered in. He only needed to say these words out loud. It was destined that the yellow mud would fall into the crotch of his pant. Laird heaven laws. Since when was it your Shi family's turn to explain? Then what was the use of the enforcers? As the Duke of the Shi family, if he said this in front of everyone, wouldn't he be telling everyone that the Shi family was indeed making use of the enforcers this time? If Shi Chengyu did not say this, then when the enforcers went back to ask, the Shi family could say that they did not know. What? They actually went down? I'll investigate immediately. Therefore, after investigating and dealing with a few people who were neither too big nor too small, this matter was reduced to a small one. However, from the moment Shi Chengyu said this sentence, the Shi family could no longer escape from the responsibility. How could Shi Chengyu not panic? The 3 law enforcement officers didn't say anything. They just gave him a deep, meaningful look. Then, they turned their heads. Shi Chengyu looked around in panic. He only saw Li Biatian, Yi Shiyu, Meng Se, and the rest looking at him with gloating eyes. His face instantly turned ashen. The gazes of the other 8 great clans and the enforcers were all focused on a few people. Their gazes were fervent. Jiu Du, Xingdong Wushong, and Mo Tianji. These 3 people were the most dazzling young people, a sword emperor and a saber emperor. The master of calculation and manipulation. As for Ju Q, they all knew that such a person could no longer be recruited. As for the others, they did not put them in their eyes. Chu Yang's performance was also very dazzling. However, compared to these 3 people, he paled in comparison. This was the situation that Mo Tianji had purposely created for this battle. The 3 people stood out and suppressed the halo above Chu Yang's head. People would notice him, but they would not pay special attention to him. This way, the threat that others posed to Chu Yang would be reduced. After all, it was still acceptable for a few geniuses to appear in such a big 3 heavens. For a day and a night, no one said anything. No one did anything. Everything was to recover their strength. This included the great clans and the enforcers. The supreme martial artist suppression just now was not easy to bear. They had to circulate their martial arts to slowly recover. Furthermore, it was impossible for them to fully recover after a day and a night. Furthermore, they had just gone through a big battle and were feeling depressed. They could not possibly continue to talk about important matters. That night, Mo Tianji stepped on the 7 stars illusion. With the sun and moon lantern above his head and the yin and yang swords in his hands, he began to calculate the secrets of the heavens with all his might. This was the procedure that he had planned step by step before the battle. Right now, Although the situation had changed a lot, it was still progressing according to his plan in an orderly manner. The moment the moon shone in the sky, Missouri Tianji violently spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed to the ground. Chu Yang hurriedly supported him and fed him a heavy pill. Only then did Mo Tianji wake up. His expression was extremely weak. I have realized that you are basically using your own life to predict the secrets of the heavens. Chu Yang grumbled, if this goes on, what will happen? Mo Tianji chuckled, predicting the secrets of the heavens requires a person's life as compensation. If I don't pay a little, how can I get anything? His eyes were filled with joy as he said, but this is also the greatest value of my existence. It is also my greatest joy. Every time I know something that others do not know, that sense of accomplishment surpasses everything else. Chu Yang sighed deeply, not knowing what to say. Are Dong Wushong and Rui Bu Tong outside? Mo Tianji asked. Invite the two of them in. I want to say a few words to them. Wushong, do you like Mo Lei? No one expected this. After Dong Wushong came in, Mo Tianji actually asked such a question. Dong Wushong was a little stunned and also a little confused. He scratched his head and said, "This. I really don't know. I only know that I don't dislike being with her." Dong Wushong was tall and burly. Scratching his head like this made him look especially cute. Chu Yang couldn't help but laugh. Chu Yang rolled his eyes and said, "Then, Wushong, when you saw Mo Lei vomiting blood and fainting, did your heart hurt?" "Yes." Dong Wushong was very straightforward this time. There was a sudden pain. "Then, I felt my heart clench. But this doesn't seem to have anything to do with whether I like her or not." Hearing this sentence, even the wise and far-sighted Mo Tianji rolled his eyes. "All right, you see, Mo Lei's father, the Black Devil, is already seriously injured and disabled. The Black Devil clan basically died out after that battle. As for us, even if the Black Devil clan is on our side now, we won't allow such a clan of assassins to flourish again. So, it doesn't seem appropriate for Mo Lei to stay here now." Mo Tianji chose his words carefully and said, "If Mo Lei goes with you to relax. Firstly, you can get rid of the mental block in your heart. Secondly, you can fulfill the Black Demon's wish. Thirdly, you can even do something for your brothers and be of great help. Are you willing?" Dong Wushong only heard the last sentence, "You can do something for your brothers and help them greatly." Thus, he readily agreed, what's there to be unwilling about? Then, very good. Prepare yourself. Prepare to live together with Mo Lei. Mo Tianji smiled strangely and said, "Don't worry, we will take good care of the Black Devil. As long as I, Mo Tianji, am here, the Black Devil will be fine. Even if he really dies, I, Mo Tianji, will die before him. You will also die before him." The fact that Mo Tianji had spoken to this point showed how serious he was. There was no doubt about it. "I believe you," Dong Wushong said without hesitation. "Okay, next you," and so on, 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 and so on. Mo Tianji lowered his voice. "Ah!" Dong Wushong shouted. His eyes almost popped out. "What are you shouting for? I will send someone to help you." Mo Tianji looked at him angrily. "Bu Tong, do you want to go to the upper three heavens?" Mo Tianji smiled and asked Rui Bu Tong kindly. "Whoever doesn't want to go is a bastard." Rui Bu Tong was even more straightforward. "That's great, there's a chance now." Mo Tianji raised his eyebrows. In the dead of night, Chu Yang and Mo Tianji slowly strolled by the side of the Lake of Death. After this chaos in the upper three heavens, I'm afraid that the upper three heavens will also be in chaos. Mo Tianji said, "After this chaos, I'm afraid that part of the passage between the upper three heavens and the upper three heavens will be blocked by the enforcers. The other part will also be heavily guarded. There won't be people from the upper three heavens sneaking down to stir up trouble. At least for a short period of time, it won't be possible." "So you arranged for Dong Wushong and Rui Bu Tong to go to the upper three heavens first?" Chu Yang asked seriously. "That's right." Mo Tianji looked at the sky with his hands behind his back and said softly, "Your fate is still in chaos. I can't calculate it. But whether or not I can calculate it, I'll make plans in advance. After all, it's better to be prepared. You also know that I have a habit of preparing for a rainy day. Mo Tianji smiled faintly. The upper three heavens is too unfamiliar to us. I won't recklessly charge in with you. Dong Wu Shong is brave and resourceful. Rui Bu Tong is cunning and flexible. With the two of them going, we can explore the bottom of the sea and fight steadily. No matter how many years it takes before we can go up, we must first bury 2 nails. Chapter 709. Mo Tianji narrowed his eyes and said, Boss, I won't say anything now, but after many years, you'll understand that if you plant a tree today, when it's about to die from the sun, there will be a forest waiting for you. Chu Yang smiled faintly. I can think of a forest, but it's not a good idea for you to always overdraft yourself like this. If he fights the heavens, your body won't be able to take it and you'll be a burden to us. Mo Tianji smiled warmly. Absolutely not. Everyone knows that grasping the world was created by Xiao Fengyun himself. But after studying it for a while, I realized that it's limitless. He blinked and said, since we can use our lifespan to exchange for the prediction of heaven's secrets, then we can use luck and other methods to make up for our losses. I reckon that senior Xiao Fengyun was so powerful back then because he obtained this controlling the world. Chu Yang suddenly remembered. Xiao Fengyun was a wise man of his generation. He started when he was 20 years old. He changed his mind and rushed to revered martial artist in the lower 3 heavens. After entering the lower 3 heavens, he created his own technique and rushed all the way to the lower 3 heavens. Any trash cultivation method, in his hands, could be turned into something magical. His highest achievement was that of a peak-grade martial monarch. But he reached this level with his own hard work, and it only took him 10 years. Although his surname was Xiao, he wasn't from the Xiao clan of the lower 3 heavens. Moreover, the most unbelievable thing was that with the strength of a grade martial monarch, he fought for a territory in the lower 3 heavens with his bare hands. Even the big ruling families acknowledged it. Before that, Chu Yang always thought that martial monarchs were unattainable. So, he didn't feel anything wrong. But as his knowledge increased, Chu Yang gradually realized that martial monarchs weren't that amazing in the lower 3 heavens. But how could Xiao Fengyun run rampant in the lower 3 heavens with the cultivation of a grade martial monarch? Now that he thought about it, it was an unsolvable mystery. Mo Tianji looked at Chu Yang's expression and couldn't help but smile. Xiao Fengyun relied on the word wisdom in his life. Before he gained a firm foothold in the upper 3 heavens, he never fought with anyone directly. Those who took the initiative to attack him would find themselves fighting with the other great clans of the upper 3 heavens for no reason at all. He has always been on the right and the left, but he doesn't rely on anyone. What he has learned in his life is as vast as the ocean. Therefore, in the end, he created a situation where all the great clans needed his help. Thus, a delicate balance was formed. None of them dared to touch him. But once he dies, the forces he created will be immediately divided up. Mo Tianji sighed deeply and said, but precisely because he learned too many things and too many things, even though he had a treasure like controlling the world, he stopped at the level of a low-grade martial lord because of too many things. What an amazing person! Chu Yang exclaimed in admiration. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he said, in that case, wouldn't you be like Xiao Fengyun and be able to deduce many things about any martial arts? Mo Tianji smiled bitterly and shook his head. I'm different from Xiao Fengyun. I'm not interested in music, chess, painting, poetry, wine, and tea. In fact, because of tea, I even wasted my own Tianji tea. What I'm most interested in are intelligence, heavenly secrets, fate, yin and yang, and heaven and earth. Although there are many things, when all of them are added together, they are actually one thing. It's called creation. Mo Tianji said indifferently, therefore, this is my current main focus. As for martial arts, I originally wasn't very interested in them. However, after this battle, I will cultivate them. This is because only when my cultivation is high and my martial arts can my ability to see through heavenly secrets improve. Xiao Fengyun only realized that he had neglected the fundamentals and focused on trifles 10 years after he obtained the world-grasping treasure. He immediately regretted it. However, at that time, It was already impossible for him to have any great achievements in any of the areas. Mo Tianji sighed. When I saw what Xiao Fengyun left behind, I also sighed. I have this fate, but I don't have this fortune. This is also the reason why I resolutely gave up on other miscellaneous things. Chu Yang said, but you clearly know that martial arts are the pillars. Why? Because I didn't have time. Mo Tianji's eyes were bitter. I was constantly struggling to survive under Mo Tianyun's pressure. Under those circumstances, I could only learn this to save my life. However, right after Mo Tianyun died, you came. I had no choice but to rack my brains for you and for us to survive. He chuckled. However, the current 3 days are basically peaceful and uneventful. Therefore, I have enough time to control the Mo clan and cultivate at the same time. Therefore, you don't have to worry about me. Perhaps, I will reach the other side of martial arts earlier than all of you. That's good. Chu Yang relaxed. Chu Yang did not ask what the world-grasping treasure was. However, he believed in Mo Tianji. Whether he asked or not, it was the same. Just like the Calamity Sword. Even if Mo Tianji was 10,000 times smarter, he would not be able to use it. Even Chu Yang might not be able to control the world. However, it was suitable. Most importantly, in Mo Tianji's hands, it was the same as in Chu Yang's hands. One heart, one life, one goal. Furthermore, only a naturally intelligent person like Mo Tianji could unleash the greatest power of the world-grasping treasure. That night, Mo Tianji looked for Ji Mo, Jiyu Du Xing and the rest for a secret talk. Before dawn, he had a secret talk with Duke Yu. Finally, he gave some instructions to Mo Lei-er. Mo Lei-er was initially reluctant and wanted to stay behind to take care of her father. However, in the end, Mo Tianji said something and she actually relaxed and listened to him obediently. This made Chu Yang very puzzled. How much sacrifice did the Black Devil make for his daughter? For her father, Mo Lei-er was so anxious that she vomited blood on the spot. That was blood and qi attacking the heart. What she vomited was heart blood. She almost died following the Black Devil. It was easy to imagine how close the relationship between this father and daughter was. Mo Lei-er would not leave her father no matter what. She was also worried. But, what did Mo Tianji say to make this one-track-minded young Black Devil feel relieved and follow Dong Wushong? Chu Yang asked himself. He probably did not have such means. When he asked Mo Tianji smiled and said, "Heaven's secrets cannot be revealed." This made Chu Yang spit on his face. The next day, after Chu Yang and the others woke up, they tied it up. The big clans also got up and walked over. The battle here was over. It was time for them to go back. Of course, other than the Li clan, no one else achieved their goal. Who was the Tribulation Sword Master? There were only 2 possibilities. One was Jiyu Duxing and the other was Dong Wushong. However, Dong Wushong was the Saber Emperor. How could the Tribulation Sword Master be the Saber Emperor? Therefore, he was ruled out. As for Jiyu Duxing, he was the Sword Emperor. Everyone knew that although the Sword Emperor appeared because of the Tribulation Sword Master, the Tribulation Sword Master was definitely not a simple Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor needed to be undistracted and focused on cultivation. Only then could he succeed. However, the Master of the Calamity Sword had always been an all-knowing person. His thoughts were complicated, and he was even more cunning than the number 1 sage of the Zhuge family, who was famous in the heavens. How could such a person be the Sword Emperor? Therefore, Jiyu Duxing was also ruled out. As for the others, they were even less likely. There were people who suspected King of Hell Chu, but King of Hell Chu was really too unremarkable in this battle. Furthermore, from the looks of it, he didn't seem to be the leader of this group of people. He fought while he was still a sovereign. How could the Tribulation Sword Master be like this? Which one of them was willing to be under someone else? Furthermore, as long as the Tribulation Sword Master fought, no matter how he changed his moves, the big clans would be able to recognize him at first glance. Chu Yang's sword technique was extremely sharp and could be called a sword technique. However, compared to the Tribulation Sword technique, it wasn't at that level. Furthermore, Chu Yang was very familiar with it. It was obvious that he used it often. That was even more impossible. Therefore, they started to suspect Mo Tianji. However, Mo Tianji. What was there to suspect? Mo Tianji was a strategist. Therefore, the big clans, including those who held the sword technique, were all stunned. There were already a few people who locked their gazes on Li Xiongtu, who was being led by Li Bietian. This guy was probably one of the tribulations of the Tribulation Sword Master. This matter was a little complicated. Chu Yang and the others were suspicious at first, but Chu Yang and Mo Tianji had a secret discussion that day, which made the first impression the strongest. However, they completely eliminated the suspicions of the people on their side. Now, all the big clans were suspicious of Li Xiongtu. Of course, they ignored Li Xiongtu's enemies. How could the brothers of the Tribulation Sword Master kill each other? Wasn't that a joke? After Li Xiongtu fainted that day, Li Bietian didn't let him wake up after seeing that the Li clan was dead. If this guy didn't take things easy after he woke up, Li Bietian wouldn't be able to control himself here. Furthermore, he came down this time to help his entire clan. Now, he was only left with a single strand of hair. He couldn't explain himself when he returned. If something happened to Li Xiongtu, he would be in deep trouble. You're Jiyu Duxing? The clan leader of the Jiyu clan in 3 days? The white-bearded cultivator looked at Jiyu Duxing with an amiable expression. If the cultivator didn't speak, the others wouldn't dare to make the first move. Jiyu Duxing was already prepared. He replied respectfully. Are you interested in following me back to 3 days? The white-bearded cultivator said kindly, with your talent, it's a waste for you to stay here for 3 days. If you follow me back and become the disciple of a great master, you'll be able to master your swordsmanship very soon. Jiyu Duxing's face flushed red. He seemed very agitated. However, his face turned pale immediately. He seemed to have thought of something. However, anyone could tell that he was hesitating. He was conflicted. He seemed to be struggling internally. After a long while, he said with much difficulty, I really want to go, but I have no choice. I can't go for now. He seemed to have made a difficult decision. However, he still said, however, if I can settle the matter here, I'll definitely go to 3 days. When that time comes, I'll have to ask the cultivator to take care of me. The white-bearded cultivator calmed down. He thought that since Jiyu Duxing said that, it would be easy to handle. He could tell that Jiyu Duxing was leaving him a way out. He thought, who knows when I'll go and find you. But now, I have no choice. I understand. After all, a martial artist's dream is to go to 3 days. The white-bearded cultivator nodded his head generously and became even more amiable. He took out a purple crystal token from his bosom and said, Duxing, if you arrive in the 3rd heavens, you can take this token and come find me. No matter what it is, this old man can handle it properly for you. Chapter 710. As he spoke, the white-bearded cultivator swept his indifferent gaze across the faces of the big clans. His gaze was not sharp. However, the warning was obvious. This person, this sword emperor, the future sword monarch, sword saint, even. I've already decided. Who dares to snatch him from me? When they met his gaze, the big dukes were all expressionless. Ling Han Shui said lightly, Elder Mu, since you've already decided, we naturally won't be tactful. It's not early for everyone to come out, it's better to get down to business. Everyone nodded, obviously agreeing with Ling Han Shui's words. We're not stupid. How can we snatch the person you've decided on? At most, we'll snatch him after we return or after he's out of your sight. If that doesn't work, won't we destroy him secretly? The white-bearded cultivator snorted and stuffed the jade pendant into Jiyu Duxing's hand. He said to Dong Wushang, You're Dong Wushang? Dong Wushang said straightforwardly, Yes. I'm going to the upper 3 heavens to take a look. The white-bearded cultivator and the big clans were all stunned. This guy is really straightforward. We haven't had the chance to ask him. If it were anyone else, wouldn't they take this opportunity to fight for benefits? Seeing that the cultivator thinks so highly of you, he'll definitely give you whatever you want. I've never seen such a stupid person. This guy just blurted it out so straightforwardly. At the side, Dong Wushang's eyes suddenly became hot, and a wave of guilt suddenly hit him. Wushang did it for me, right? He lowered his head and sighed softly in his heart. He only felt sad. I forced my own brother to leave and go to the upper three heavens. Good. Good, good. The white-bearded cultivator couldn't help but say good 3 times. He said, since that's the case, I'll bring you up with me. But I have a request, Jiang Wushang said in a daze. Everyone almost fainted. What the fuck? So this guy isn't stupid, he's waiting here. Now that he's whetted his appetite, he can get whatever he wants. What request? Elder Mu's face also twitched. I'm going up to take a look. I want to explore the upper 3 heavens. However, I don't necessarily have to join any organization. Dong Wushang said straightforwardly, I'm a straightforward person. Of course, if you want to join, you can't do it now. No matter what, you need to have some foundation and some achievements. Everyone understood in their hearts. This guy looks silly, but he is not stupid at all. Right now, even if it was the Saber Emperor, he would only be an unremarkable little minion. Once he had some strength, his value would multiply. The white-bearded man laughed heartily and said, of course, that's not a problem. Even if we are the law enforcers, we can't force people to do things they don't want to. He made up his mind, once I go there, I'll take out my sincerity to recruit you. I'll let you take a low-grade Saber Saint as your master. Let's see if you're willing to part with Zhao. What he didn't know was that even if he invited a Saber Supreme to be Dong Wushang's master, Dong Wushang would probably scoff at him. I have another request. Dong Wushang said. You have another request? The white-bearded man was stunned. Yes. Dong Wushang said righteously, if I go to the upper 3 heavens, my wife has to go too, right? Behind him, Mo Leiya's face was red. She hid her face behind Dong Wushang's back and secretly pinched his waist. Wife. When did I become your wife? You make it sound so vulgar and unpleasant. Dong Wushang stood firm and unmoving. The muscles on his black face contorted violently without leaving a trace. Ah, that's only right. The white-bearded man, Elder Mu, was instantly relieved. Isn't it just bringing your wife? Besides, if I don't let you bring your wife, what are you going to do? My brother also wants to go and take a look. Dong Wushang pulled Rui Butong over. He wants to go and find some medicine. I'm sick. Rui Butong had come out in high spirits, but when he heard the last sentence, he immediately lowered his head deeply, almost stuffing it into his pants. This is so embarrassing. What reason can't you say? Must you say this? In front of all the brothers and big clans, what's the difference between that and announcing it to the upper 3 heavens? Seeing everyone's strange looks, Rui Butong was in so much pain that he wanted to die. I can foresee that the name Rui Butong will soon be famous all over the upper 3 heavens. How am I going to find a wife in the future? Just as he raised his head, he met Yi Shiyu's somewhat passionate eyes. Instantly, his whole body trembled and he started to shiver like a quail in winter. That gaze is too scary. Suddenly, Rui Butong was a little afraid of going to the upper 3 heavens. He secretly swore in his heart, once I reach the upper 3 heavens, I will immediately disappear without a trace. I will definitely not let any of you find me. Rui Butong gritted his teeth and thought fiercely. The white-bearded man agreed and thought, I thought it was a big deal. Isn't it just impotence? Yes, if it's serious, it will be very difficult to find such medicine even in the upper 3 heavens. Dong Wushang's matter was settled just like that. Next, it was time for the confrontation. He asked Mo Tianji, but Mo Tianji didn't answer and only revealed a warm smile. His smile was amiable and impeccable, just like the smile in the textbook of nobility. However, the meaning of I'm not going in his smile was also so obvious. So obvious that it made people feel embarrassed to ask again. Luo Kedi shook his head like a rattledrum. Ji Mo grabbed Huyen Abua's hand with a face full of happiness. Xie Danqiong, the young clan head of the Xie clan, how could he leave? Ao Xieyun. Needless to say. As for Tan Tan, the white-bearded man only took a glance and turned his face away. This face was indeed a little too horrible to look at. Especially when the law enforcer looked over, Tan Tan unexpectedly revealed a smile. There was no way to describe this smile. The white-bearded man felt very lucky. Luckily, I haven't eaten this morning. Damn it. Next was the problem of dealing with the funeral. Actually, there wasn't much to do. It was just a memorial service and everyone should go their separate ways. After the man left, the big clans expressed their condolences and tactfully mentioned it to Jiu Duxing and the rest. However, seeing that everyone's attitude was firm, they had no choice but to accept this fact. However, when they were about to leave, these young talents gathered together and looked at each other with a kind of one day, we'll meet again in the upper three heavens. Although they were all smiling and amiable, the faint wariness between them was extremely tight. Everyone had a feeling, these people will be my opponents in the future, it's very dangerous. Not only did Chu Yang and the rest have this feeling, but Li Bietian and the rest also felt it very clearly. After a few hypocritical and tacit words, the big clans left one by one under the supervision of the man in charge. Finally, Dong Wushong, Rui Biu Tong and Mo Leiye bid farewell to everyone and left with the man in charge. The Black Devil and his brothers came out to send them off. Although the Black Devil was severely injured, he struggled and insisted on coming out. The Black Devil felt very gratified that his daughter was going to the upper three heavens. He said happily, Dong Wushong, I'll leave my daughter to you. You have to protect her well. Take care of her. If you dare to let her be wronged. Humph. Dong Wushong patted his chest and said heroically, don't worry. Leave everything to me. The Black Devil nodded. Then, he turned his head to look at Dong Wulei and said, the two of them have gone up together for many years. A man and a woman alone together. Why don't we take advantage of the fact that both of us are here? I'm Leiye's father and you're Dong Wushong's elder brother. As the saying goes, an elder brother is like a father. Let's settle the marriage here. It'll be more justifiable. When he said this, Mo Leiye's face burned with anger. Dong Wulei said, that's good. Let's exchange tokens. This is an emergency, so we can only do this. What tokens? The Black Devil waved his remaining hand disdainfully and said, we're people of the pugilistic world. Our words hold the weight. You said it, I said it and everyone is a witness. Then, from now on, the two of you are husband and wife. It's so troublesome and annoying. The man is in charge of the outside and the woman is in charge of the inside. Exchanging tokens is nothing more than moving from one's left pocket to the right pocket. Don't you know how annoying it is? He raised his eyebrows. Dong Wushong, from now on, my daughter is your wife. He turned around and shouted, Leiye, this is your husband. How the two of you fight and scold each other is your business. No one else can interfere, and they can't do anything about it. Including me. From now on, your happiness is your business. If you're unhappy, it's your own fault. That's it. Does anyone have anything else to say? When he turned around, he saw that everyone was stunned in place. This was the first time they saw a father-in-law like this. There was no betrothal gift, no matchmaker, no dowry, no confirmation ceremony, no wedding ceremony, and no ceremony. They were husband and wife just like that. They had heard of a final decision, but they had never heard of such a final decision. Even the bride-to-be, Mo Leiye, forgot to be shy. She looked at her father in a daze. Her pretty eyes were wide open. She had never thought that she would be married off just like that. Clap, clap, clap. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji clapped together. It's the Black Devil indeed. So clean and neat. I can't help but be impressed. Today was a good day to have won the war, and the scenery was beautiful. Furthermore, there were many brothers here, and two supreme martial artists as witnesses. Dong Wushong, this is a heaven-sent marriage. Hurry up and greet your father-in-law. Dong Wushong, who was not mentally prepared at all, was like a duck that had been struck by lightning. He did not regain his senses for a long time. Just kowtow. The Black Devil waved his hand again. His voice was still as sinister as usual, but there was a hint of a smile on his face. Go. Chu Yang kicked the back of Dong Wushang's leg, and he fell to his knees with a plop. Dong Wushang still hadn't come to his senses, and was about to get up in a daze. All the brothers swarmed forward and held Dong Wushang down, and flipped him over to the ground with a plop. Luo Kedi and Ji Mo held his shoulders, and Xie Danqiong held the back of his waist, pressing him forward. Bo! Mo Tianji dragged his words. Everyone exerted their strength. Rui Biu Tong held Dong Wushang's head. He was completely taking revenge. He smashed Dong Wushang's head into the snow as if he wanted to smash through the ground. I said that I was typing with 2 fingers, but you didn't believe me. I have witnesses. When I saw Dark Mountain last time, this guy was so shocked that his eyeballs almost popped out. You're actually typing with 2 fingers? You're even competing with me? You actually beat me every time? Chapter 711. Poof, poof, poof. Dong Wushang's head was held by Rui Biu Tong and smashed onto the ground like a battering ram, causing snow and ice to fly everywhere. Dong Wushang's head, which was already dizzy, became even more muddled. His head smashing onto the ground represented 3 kowtows. Rui Biu Tong felt good all over. Damn, this is so satisfying. The ceremony is complete. Mo Tianji dragged his words. This temporary master of ceremonies had obviously simplified all the procedures. What's done is done. What's done is done. Chu Yang nodded. Son-in-law, please rise. The Black Devil was obviously inexperienced as a father-in-law for the first time. He grinned and even messed up the way he addressed Dong Wushang. When this sentence came out, those who didn't know would think that it was this father-in-law who was kowtowing. Everyone cheered with a loud bang. Dong Wushang stood up and turned around in a daze. He met everyone's gaze. Mo Lei shyly bowed to Dong Wu Lei, and then the couple knelt down together and kowtowed to Dong Wu Lei and the Black Devil. This could be said to be the simplest wedding in history, and it was completed just like that. Second Master Dong seemed to have woken up from a dream. He scratched his head and his eyes were still filled with disbelief. So, from now on, I also have a wife. Mo Lei hummed shyly. He patted Dong Wushang's shoulder and said earnestly, Wushang, you're going to be taken from now on. You need to be more vigilant when you hunt for food. You need to clean up the aftermath. Dong Wushang nodded. This sentence provoked countless punches. The brothers laughed and scolded him. They pressed Ji Mo into the snow and beat him violently. It seemed that this wasn't enough to vent the excitement in their hearts. After a long time, Ji Mo was rescued by Huyen Ao Bo. Chu Yang touched his chin and said thoughtfully, Ao Bo, from what Ji Mo said, he is a little familiar with this. He's so experienced. But I believe that Ji Mo is definitely not that kind of person. Huyen Ao Bo was stunned. She immediately looked at Ji Mo fiercely, as if she wanted to eat him. Ji Mo wailed, Boss, you're killing me. The time to leave finally arrived. Wushang, I'll make up for it next time. Wushang, there are so many beauties in the upper 3 heavens. Wushang, when it's time to strike, when it's time to strike, strike. Be careful, don't let sister-in-law find out. Even if he finds out, he has to deny it. Mo Lei's face was flushed red. She pulled Dong Wushang's hand and ran away as if she was running for her life. She didn't even dare to look back. Wushang, you must remember that I, Biu Tong, have an illness. You must cure him. Ji Mo's words made Rui Biu Tong unable to restrain his anger. He turned his head and fiercely bared his teeth. Everyone burst into laughter. Some of them even laughed so hard that they clutched their stomachs and squatted on the ground. The black demon opened his mouth and laughed so hard that his wounds hurt, but he still laughed. In his entire life, he had never felt so happy before. It seemed that as his cultivation disappeared, his heart gradually lost its original coldness. The sorrow of parting had vanished without a trace. After a long time, the black demon clutched his stomach, which was hurting from laughing. He felt the pain and the twitching wound. He thought to himself, everyone says that when a daughter gets married, she will feel a little sad. This is really nonsense. I don't feel sad at all. Sigh, mother of my child, if only you were here to accept my daughter's and son-in-law's greetings with me. Leia, don't cry. In the distance, Dong Wushang, Rui Biu Tong, and Mo Lei, who had gone down a mountain, stood still and looked back. I'm going. I won't disappoint you. The base for our battle against the heavens is in my hands. I must build it. Wait for me. I'll wait for you. Dong Wushang touched the 4 small jade bottles that Chu Yang had secretly stuffed into his arms. Inside were life-saving elixirs. He remembered the last sentence that Chu Yang had said to him, "Everything is not important. Protecting yourselves is the most important thing." Dong Wushang smiled slightly and finally moved. The 3 figures flew away as if they were flying, disappearing from this world. Although Chu Yang didn't prepare anything, how could he not give his brother a congratulatory gift when he got married? These 4 incomplete heavy elixirs were Chu Yang's heartfelt gift. Only Chu Yang and a group of people were left on the mountain peak. The people from the big clans had all disappeared. After laughing, everyone felt a little sad. But no one showed it. The water in the lake of despair suddenly started to churn. As if a pot had been opened, it started to boil more and more. Everyone widened their eyes in shock as they looked at the churning lake water. They didn't know what was going on at all. The calamity sword in Chu Yang's dantian suddenly shook. Then, it shook again and again. Slowly, from slow to fast, it spun violently and uncontrollably in Chu Yang's dantian. As if it couldn't wait to fly out, but it had some kind of fear and didn't dare to fly out. The sword spirit in Chu Yang's consciousness seemed to have felt something. Its whole body started to tremble violently. There was a look of heartfelt fear on its face. To be able to make a spirit that had faced life and death for tens of thousands of years reveal such an expression was simply unbelievable. Chu Yang's face was calm. Of course, he felt the change in his body and knew the reason. The 4th fragment of the calamity sword was about to be born. His birth this time was indeed a life and death calamity for him. The sword spirit was afraid. Even the calamity sword was afraid. What did this mean? Sword spirit, you're afraid? Chu Yang said with concern. Yes. I can't not be afraid. This is the life and death tribulation that Lord set back then. You sigh. The sword spirit sighed. Chu Yang was silent for a while. Then, he said, Sword spirit, I need you to do me a favor. What favor? The sword spirit asked. Chu Yang chuckled. Okay. The sword spirit gritted his teeth. Chu Yang smiled. Then, he leisurely walked towards his brothers. He didn't show anything on his face. He just smiled and looked at Jiu Duxing and the others. Then, he said in a brisk voice, let's quickly take care of this matter. After all, there's still a large area at the foot of the mountain waiting for us to take care of. Ha ha. When this matter was mentioned, everyone became excited. That's right. In this decisive battle, all the enemies would be taken care of. All the forces at the foot of the mountain are waiting for us to take over. From now on, the entire 3 heavens will belong to us. This was a situation that had never happened in thousands of years. Thinking of this, everyone felt an itch in their hearts. Only Mo Tianji looked at Chu Yang thoughtfully. His brows slightly furrowed. He suddenly started to worry for some reason. Chu Yang's expression and tone didn't change at all. However, Mo Tianji still felt that something was wrong. As for what was wrong, he couldn't tell. He could only think hard at one side. Before we go down the mountain, I want to remind everyone of something. Chu Yang said lightly, our clans have finally won the battle of the 3 heavens. However, it's not uncommon for both sides to suffer losses due to unequal distribution of the spoils. I hope that this won't happen to you. Ao Xieyun and Xiedan Qiong looked at each other and smiled. They said, Boss, don't worry. If anyone dares to do this, we'll attack him together. We won't recognize him as a brother anymore. Mo Tianji will calculate the distribution of the spoils and then distribute them uniformly. Chu Yang said, does anyone have any objections to this? No objections. Everyone shouted in unison. It's good that you don't have any objections. Chu Yang smiled with relief. Tonight, we'll stay for one night. We'll go down the mountain tomorrow morning. Chu Yang laughed. He was in a good mood. Although we've sacrificed a lot in today's battle, we've also gained a lot. Tonight, brothers, let's gather together. Let's drink together with the heroic spirits at the battlefield. All right. All right. All the brothers became enthusiastic. Even Jiu Duxing, who had always been cold, revealed a rare smile. Mo Tianji's brows furrowed even tighter. However, he lowered his head, so no one noticed. Chu Yang was so normal that he couldn't be any more normal. Even his gaze, facial expression, facial muscles, and body movements were the same as usual. However, Mo Tianji still felt that something was wrong. Furthermore, this feeling was getting stronger and stronger. Mo Tianji was deep in thought. Facing the lake of despair that was boiling for no reason, he was deep in thought for a long time. He didn't even hear lonesome Luo Ku Di greet him. That night, everyone took out good wine. Although it was cold, everyone still drank in full swing. After 3 rounds of toasting, everyone returned to their own tables and started to drink to their heart's content. Chu Yang, Mo Tianji, Ao Xieyun, Jiu Duxing, Jimo, Luo Ku Di, Xiedan Qiong, Xiedan Feng, Tan Tan, and Huyan Aobo occupied a big tent. They sat around a big table. Hearing the cheers outside, all the brothers were very excited. Chu Yang drank his wine. Not long after, he was already tipsy. As for Dongwu Lei, Luo Ku Wu, and the others, they were with Ao Tianxing and the others. We've won this battle. Chu Yang, who was holding his wine bowl, seemed to have thought of something. He put it down again. His expression became serious. However, I've also discovered many problems from this battle. I've also gained many insights. He looked at the few people in front of him. It's related to all of you. Seeing Chu Yang's serious expression, everyone couldn't help but put down their wine cups and look at Chu Yang. During this period of time, Chu Yang rarely put on such a serious face. Now, on such a joyous day, he said something like this. There must be something behind it. And it must be serious and serious. Everyone's spirits were lifted. They looked at Chu Yang with serious expressions and listened to him go on. Mo Tianji held his wine cup and slowly turned it in his hand. His eyes were downcast and his expression was serious. He still hadn't figured it out. Apart from Tan Tan and Jiu Duxing, all of you can basically be considered as the top of the 3 heavens. Whether it's the progress of your cultivation or your state of mind, all of you are very stable. At this rate, it won't be difficult to achieve something. But it's still not enough to reach the peak. The difference is too great. Chu Yang said indifferently, so, this battle has exposed your shortcomings. It makes me feel like there's a fishbone stuck in my throat. Boss, if you have something to say, feel free to say it, everyone said in unison. Chapter 7:12. 4,000 miles away, a man and a woman were desperately flying across the night sky like shooting stars. They were Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolan. The couple was burning with anxiety. They changed horses and hurried on their journey. However, the strength of a healthy horse was not enough to travel 10,000 miles. Therefore, after a few hundred miles, the horse was already exhausted. Every time this happened, if there was a town nearby, they would immediately buy a horse at a high price and continue their journey. If they were in the wilderness, they would abandon the horse and use their lightness technique to fly madly. In 3 days, the two of them had traveled 1,000 miles. They were still 4,000 miles away from the heavenly sword peak and the lake of death. Compared to their cultivations, this kind of speed was already world-shocking. However, the two of them were almost completely exhausted. Yang Ruolan was still desperately urging them to fly forward without any regard for their physical strength. They knew that if they rushed over now, they would not be able to affect the battle situation. Even if they rushed over, the couple would not have the strength to fight before the battle ended. However, the two of them were holding back their anger and had to rush over. Along the way, Yang Ruolan's heart was in turmoil. She thought about Wu Qianqian's words. He is an orphan. Or rather, an abandoned child. Others have parents, but he doesn't. When he was at Beyond the Heavens sect, he was usually very quiet and did not speak much. Before that, he did not attract any attention. Later on, I heard from my father that Chu Yang was very strange. It seemed that he had never truly laughed. Even if he laughed, it was a cold laugh, a mocking laugh, and a self-deprecating laugh. It was the same even when he faced a supreme martial artist. No one knew what he was thinking when he laughed. However, there were only a few times in his life when he was truly happy. When I came to Ironcloud Citadel, it was the same. His face was like a piece of iron. Perhaps it was only for a few short days. That was when the Haymo clan came. He laughed. I heard it very clearly. When he laughed, he was like an unrestrained child. Unfortunately, his smile was hidden behind the mask. I could not see it. After the Haymo clan left, he went to Great Jiao and fought a bloody battle. I'm afraid he would not laugh. Even after destroying Great Jiao and Golden Horse Riders Department, I only saw him heave a sigh of relief. He did not laugh. I wanted to make him laugh, but I lost myself in it. Ha. I really don't know what kind of heartless parents would abandon such a child. These were Wu Qianqian's words. Wu Qianqian was probably already in the upper three heavens. However, Yang Ruolan's eyes would brim with tears every time she thought of these words. Everyone else had parents, but he didn't. He rarely smiled. He was a piece of iron. In his life, there are only a few times when he is truly happy. The only time he smiled was hidden behind the mask. I wanted him to smile. Yang Ruolan felt as if her heart was being cut by a knife. Right now, the only thing she wanted to do was to hug her son tightly in her arms and make it up to him for the past 20 years. However, she was also afraid and nervous. This child was so strong and independent. When she opened her heart, he might not accept her, but whether he accepted it or not, a mother's embrace was always open to her son. When I was with him for the past few days, I rarely saw him smile. There were polite smiles, hesitant smiles, bashful smiles, sneers and mockery, but I have never seen a sincere smile or a hearty smile. This was what Chu Fei Ling said when he was reminiscing. Every time they talked about this, the couple would be speechless. Only their hearts would shatter into pieces. How can I make it up to you, my son? In another direction, Duke Yu was dressed in black and masked. He swept across the land like a ghost and chased after the figures in front. In front of him were the people from the Li clan. Of course, there were also people from other clans. If it was only the Li clan, Duke Yu would have completed his mission long ago. Unfortunately, there were more than one group of people with ulterior motives. Therefore, even someone as strong as Duke Yu could only wait for an opportunity. If he couldn't win against this group of people, he could escape no matter what. However, the key was that if he exposed his true identity, everything would be over. Chu Yang and Mo Tianji gave him this mission. If he couldn't do it, Duke Yu felt that he could only go home and hug his child, Heavenly Sword Peak, in the tent beside the Lake of Despair. Chu Yang was talking. On the surface, Ji Mo seemed to be full of tricks. His sword was sharp and unstoppable. Luo Kudai was ruthless and merciless. Ao Xie Yun was farsighted. He had already thought of dozens of ways to adapt to the situation. He easily killed the enemy with his sword. Xiedan Qiong's viburnum flowers fluttered in the wind. His eyes were cold and unwavering. It was enough to show that his determination was superb. Chu Yang said slowly, listing out everyone's strong points. Everyone listened attentively. They didn't understand what he was going to say. However, it's far from enough. You're far from enough. I can only say that if you guys reach the upper three heavens, you won't even be fit to carry the shoes of others. Within a few days, corpses would be everywhere. There wouldn't be a place to bury them. Chu Yang's gaze turned sharp. He swept his gaze across the faces of the few people. His gaze was cold and sharp. You guys are far from enough. Although no one refuted his words, the doubts and unwillingness on their faces were obvious. No matter what, they couldn't be as bad as Chu Yang described. Don't be unconvinced. Did you see the various dukes who came today? Chu Yang laughed coldly and asked. Of course, we saw those few people. They are also important people to pay attention to. Xiedan Qiong weighed his words carefully and said, Boss, don't be angry. From what I see, there are a few people among them. However, most of them rely on their clans. It looked very tiresome. Perhaps there's another side to them. However, from the looks of it, even if they're hiding something, they can't reach there. When he said this, Jimo and Luo Ku Di nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Indeed, those few people were simply unbearable to look at. For example, Yi Shiyu was arrogant, Li Bietian was arrogant, Shi Chengyu was lured into a ditch by Mo Tianji, and the domineering Chen Fei Chen. The gloomy Xiao Ju Chen. These people undoubtedly gave people a bad first impression. Jiu Du Xing raised his eyebrows. Ao Xie Yun frowned. Mo Tianji held his wine cup. He looked a little unhappy. The three of them wanted to stop Xiedan Qiong and the other two from speaking. However, they didn't do so in the end. It was better to suffer a little than to be told off. Chu Yang's face darkened. Is that what you think? Perhaps there's something that we haven't seen yet. Xiedan Qiong tried to salvage the situation. Ha ha ha. Chu Yang was so angry that he laughed. If Luo Ku Di and Jimo said this, I wouldn't be surprised. However, when you, Xiedan Qiong, said this, I really wonder if your brain is stuffed with pace. Chu Yang snorted heavily and said, you only saw that they each had their own temperament. However, you didn't see that they all knew when to advance and retreat. They knew how to make a choice and knew how to distance themselves. More importantly, each of them was confident. I also didn't think that since they had tempers, what was supporting their tempers after their tempers? It's their abilities, Chu Yang said angrily. Yi Shiyu's womanly behavior is a joke. However, you have to know that as long as they're not pure women, it's very rare for them to behave like this in public. Even if a man is mentally perverted and desires to be a woman, he will still pay attention to his image and his self-esteem. He will only show some abnormalities when he's not paying attention to them. However, Yi Shiyu is so unscrupulous. Why? As a member of the Yi clan, how can he be so shameless? Have you ever thought that this is actually a deadly disguise? Now that you see him like this, even if he's a member of the Yi clan, he will still feel contempt. You will feel that you look down on him. Isn't that right? However, if you think this way, you've already placed your lives in your own hands. He only let you see the transvestite side of him. However, he didn't let you see the ruthless and decisive side of him. This side of him is indispensable to a member of the Yi clan. If he's not good enough, he won't be able to survive in the clan. And Yi Shiyu is the third duke of the Yi clan. He's waiting for you to look down on him. Once you're faced with an enemy, even if your abilities are on par with his, you'll still lose your life to him because of this. Because since he sacrificed his reputation in exchange for this slight advantage, he won't give you a chance to regret it. Therefore, under his transvestite appearance, there's definitely a deadly aura. If he doesn't do this, then he's not Yi Shiyu. He's also not fit to be the third duke of the Yi clan. Every clan has a good-for-nothing brother. However, no good-for-nothing brother can become the third duke of a big clan like the Yi clan. Big clans have tens of thousands of years of history. When we consider anything related to them, we have to consider the most terrifying aspect. The brothers broke out in cold sweat. Indeed, when they saw Yi Shiyu, they all felt that he was funny, looked down on and had goosebumps. However, the only thing they didn't feel was fear. However, this feeling of not feeling fear was the most terrifying thing. Ling Han Shui is a woman. However, it's precisely because of this that a woman can represent the Ling clan. It's not just because of her strength. It's definitely because of her intelligence. However, when we look at Ling Han Shui, she's like a piece of ice that won't melt. Normally, people with cold hearts and cold faces give people the impression that they're cold on the outside but warm on the inside. Another impression is that they're not very scheming, because coldness is a layer of protection. There's another point. Coldness can arouse a person's desire to conquer, especially those with high positions who think that they're great. The greatest achievement in conquering a woman is conquering this type of iceberg. Coincidentally, no matter how courteous the dukes of big clans appear to be, they're also very arrogant. Then, could Ling Han Shui's coldness be a trap? Chu Yang took a deep breath and said, I'm very unwilling to think of a cold and beautiful woman in that way. Perhaps she's not cold and beautiful, but I still have to think of it this way. This is related to our survival in the future. Do you understand what I mean? Everyone nodded. Therefore, this Ling Han Shui is definitely not to be underestimated. Chu Yang said, "What's your impression of Ling Han Shui? Ao Xieyun and Xie Danqiong, all of you admire a type of beauty. It's one thing to have a beautiful heart, but after beauty comes danger. Even idiotic women can make men fight for them if they have a beautiful face. Not to mention noble ladies from big clans." Chapter 7:13. Chu Yang snorted, "You didn't see what you should have seen, and you blindly saw what you shouldn't have seen. You've made enemies for yourself. The other clans have more or less invited the two of you, but why didn't the Ling clan? It's because the two of you are already dispensable in her eyes. If you take a step forward, you'll be killed. If you take a step back, it doesn't matter." The four of them lowered their heads in shame. Sweat dripped down Jimo's head, but he didn't dare to make a sound. This was because there was an extra hand on his waist, and the muscles on his waist had been twisted. Behind him, Huyen Aobo's face was solemn as she listened to Chu Yang carefully. It was as if that hand didn't belong to her. Also, the elder of the Zhuge clan hasn't said a single word since he came here. He's so low-key that it's unbelievable. However, look at the other 8 clans. Whether it's the arrogant Li Bietian, the domineering Chen Fei Chen, the perverted Yi Shiyu, or the otherworldly Meng Se, none of them dared to provoke the elder of the Zhuge clan. They didn't even exchange any pleasantries. Why? Don't tell me that the clans don't greet each other when they meet in the upper 3 heavens. Even if it's a blood feud, shouldn't they do something when they meet? This is enough to prove that they're wary of this person, and this person's low-key nature gives them a chance to save their face. Then, what kind of role does the elder of the Zhuge clan, who didn't even reveal his name, have? Chu Yang said all this in one breath. Even Mo Tianji's face changed. This was because there were many things that even he didn't think of and didn't notice. How can a man of the upper 3 heavens not disguise himself as an outstanding gongong of a great clan? Think about yourselves. The clans of the upper 3 heavens fight to the death. Don't you think that the upper 3 heavens doesn't? Mo Tianji, when you fought with Mo Tianyun, you pretended to be a saint. As for Ao Xieyun, I don't think you're like this in front of your brothers. Luo Ku Di just got rid of his crisis, but what about before? Jimo, are you really born so lazy? Even you guys can pretend. And it's for a clan that can't even compare to the branch of a great clan. Why don't you guys consider it, but not the elders of great clans? Have you inherited a bunch of idiots after 10,000 years? Is that even possible? Why do you only see the domineering, arrogant, perverted and ridiculous exterior, but not the inner workings? The more Chu Yang spoke, the angrier he got. Based on your current state of mind, I'll bring you to the upper 3 heavens. To court death. The more Chu Yang spoke, the angrier he got. In the end, he was on the verge of swearing. This was the first time that these brothers had seen Chu Yang lose his temper. So, they couldn't help but keep quiet out of fear. They didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Mo Tianji frowned and slowly pondered. The brothers may be lacking, but they are definitely not as bad as Chu Yang said. Chu Yang even went so far as to accentuate and magnify a certain kind of disadvantage. Then, he used this as a pretext to make a fuss and scold the locust tree. He exaggerated one deficiency to 10 points and even included everyone. What was his intention? Li Bietian. The moment he appeared, he was arrogant and domineering, as if he didn't put anyone in his eyes. But when he saw Ling Han Shui, he immediately softened. Why? Was he trying to say that he bullied the weak and feared the strong? Or is he trying to prove to everyone that he's a lecher? Let me tell you, no matter what you think of him, once you enter these 2 areas, as long as you face him, you will definitely die. Chen Fei Chen has no regard for others. He seems arrogant, but everyone who tried to recruit Du Xing only said that he was rich and powerful. But Chen Fei Chen said at the end, if you're willing, we're brothers. We'll share fortune and misfortune. We'll never abandon each other in life and death. We're willing to swear to the heavens and earth. Chu Yang smiled gently. A duke from a great clan in the upper 3 heavens made such a huge promise to someone from the upper 3 heavens. If it wasn't Du Xing, but someone else, what would their reaction be? A gentleman would die for his friend. He's so eager for talents and has such sharp eyes. How can he be the arrogant person that he appears to be? The other great clans only have hope for Du Xing. They think that he's extraordinary. But Chen Fei Chen is certain that Du Xing will reach the peak. That's why he's doing this. Have you ever thought of this? Everyone lowered their heads. Their faces were heavy. Chen Fei Chen had obviously avoided everyone when he looked for Jiyu Du Xing. But why would Jiyu Du Xing hide it from Chu Yang? Now that Chu Yang said this, everyone was shocked. Don't blame me for being angry. We'll eventually reach the upper three heavens in the future. Many of these people will be our enemies. Chu Yang said seriously, a single mistake in judgment will be a matter of life and death. If I don't say it today, it'll be too late after a few days when your hearts are set. Because your first impression will have already left a shadow in your heart. But that shadow will be the cause of your failure. Everyone nodded silently. They felt that they were already sweating profusely. Their hearts were beating wildly. The tipsy feeling that they had just felt was gone. Everyone's heart was clear. Mo Tianji thought deeply and nodded slowly. What Chu Yang said made a lot of sense. It was indeed necessary. However, what Mo Tianji valued and thought about was Chu Yang's observation in these words. Chu Yang's understanding of human nature, his research into conspiracies, his plans for the future, and his deep thinking about how to conduct himself in the world. Mo Tianji smiled in his heart. It's really a blessing to be friends with Chu Yang in this life. If he can get through this crisis, then I will be able to move unhindered in the upper three heavens with him in the future. Then, my intelligence and his scheming methods will complement each other seamlessly. They will be a perfect pair of pearls and jade. Thinking about this, Mo Tianji was suddenly stunned. He thought of something. Could it be that Chu Yang himself also felt the crisis this time? Now, he's deliberately giving me a warning? Making arrangements for my death. Thinking about the words giving me a warning, making arrangements for my death, Mo Tianji suddenly understood. Chu Yang's words just now, especially towards the end, had clearly used a kind of shocking martial technique. The effect should be, giving me a warning. Chu Yang deliberately drank with everyone first. When everyone was tipsy, he slowly attracted everyone's attention. Unknowingly, he gave giving me a warning. He made everyone wake up from their drunken stupor with a start. In this way, everyone was sweating profusely and their drunkenness was gone. Mo Tianji stole a glance at everyone and saw that everyone was sweating profusely. Luo Ku Di's cotton clothes were also soaked, revealing traces of wetness. Mo Tianji secretly nodded. This was the moment when a person's mind was the most flexible and clear-headed. It was also the moment when it was easiest to have indelible memories. Since this was the case, what Chu Yang was going to say next would be of great importance. Then, he only needed to consider what he was going to say next to know what he was thinking. Mo Tianji lowered his eyes. His face was calm and peaceful, but he was extremely alert. He pricked up his ears and prepared to analyze what Chu Yang was going to say next. He had even secretly used the world control technique to merge his own energy into the ethereal operation of heaven's secrets. It was as if a pair of eyes had opened in the dark and were looking at Chu Yang, analyzing Chu Yang's state of mind and the operation of heaven's secrets. He suddenly had a feeling. Perhaps, Chu Yang's analysis and planning this time was the real first step of Heavenly Armament Pavilion to conquer the heavens. Sure enough. Chu Yang's sharp eyes looked at the brothers one by one and said, when the big clans tried to recruit us, except for Du Xing, they only tried to recruit us perfunctorily. This also shows that they did not put us in their eyes at all. In fact, they are indeed stronger than us now. The reason why they are stronger than us is because, since young, they have been instilled with the ultimate goal in their lives by their clans. From the beginning of their cultivation, they have been constantly moving towards that goal. Their goal is incomparably clear. Mo Tianji was suddenly enlightened when Chu Yang said this. He suddenly realized something. He always felt that the big clans had an inexplicable confidence compared to his brothers. But it was not the arrogance of a superior. Mo Tianji had been thinking about it, but he did not understand where this confidence came from. But when Chu Yang said this, he immediately understood. Goal. A life with a clear goal and a life without a goal were completely different. Think about it. You know how to work hard, know how to improve, and even be willing to risk your life. But you do not know what you want to do in the future. This kind of hard work was equivalent to useless work. The higher one's cultivation, the bigger the gap between them and people of the same level. This was also a case of a first-grade martial saint being able to kill another first-grade martial saint instantly. That was the biggest difference between them. Having a goal was blissful and full of motivation. A life without a goal was full of sorrow and confusion. How could this be the same? Chu Yang said solemnly, and among us, there are only 3 people who have already determined their life goals. That is Du Xing, Tianji, and me. As for the rest of you, you have not. Jimo, let me ask you, why are you cultivating, working hard, and risking your life? What do you want to do in the future? What do you want to achieve in the end? Where is the end of your life? Chu Yang asked a series of questions. Jimo thought carefully. Suddenly, he lowered his head deeply. Beads of sweat the size of soybeans dripped down from his forehead. They dripped into the wine bowl in front of him and made a sound. Ao Xieyun, what about you? Chu Yang's cold and sharp gaze looked at Ao Xieyun. I. Ao Xieyun was tongue-tied. He, who had always been eloquent, was actually speechless at this moment. After a long while, he lowered his head as well. Chu Yang's gaze turned to Luo Kedi. Luo Kedi shrank into a ball like a quail, avoiding his gaze. Chu Yang looked at Xie Danqiong. Xie Danqiong had already lowered his head. Before this, everyone thought that they had a goal, and their goal was clear. But at this moment, after asking about it in detail, they realized that their goals were too general, too vague, and had no substance at all. Moreover, their goals in the past were nothing more than to control the clan and become the clan leader. However, there was no need to be afraid of not knowing the quality of the goods. Instead, there was a need to compare the quality of the goods. Compared to the great aristocratic families of the upper 3 heavens, this goal was not worth mentioning. Was the goal that they worked so hard for their entire lives something that could be destroyed with just a word from others? So, other than sincerely recruiting Jiyu Duxing and Mo Tianji, they were just perfunctory with the few of you. They even hoped that you would not agree. In other words, they looked down on you. You are not in their eyes at all. Chapter 7:14. Everyone's breathing quickened as they rushed over. Everyone was panting and their faces were gradually flushed red. Their eyes were burning with anger and they couldn't help but clench their fists. Everyone was proud and arrogant. How could they be willing to be looked down upon like this? Chu Yang looked at them coldly and said, "You're not convinced. What's the use of not being convinced?" He paused and his face became more and more serious. It was as if a layer of frost had covered his face. For a long time, no one spoke. Only the sound of heavy breathing could be heard. "I've created a goal for each of you," Chu Yang insipidly said. "If you want to achieve this goal, you'll have to put in 100 times more effort than before. I'll say it one by one. As for whether you can achieve it or not, that's your problem." Everyone's spirits were lifted. Mo Tianji arranged for Dong Wushong to go to the upper 3 heavens because Dong Wushong has the protection of love and the ultimate saber. He no longer needs a goal. The reason why I'm not talking about Jiyu Duxing is because Jiyu Duxing has nothing else in his life other than his sword. He no longer needs a goal. "Jimo!" Chu Yang shouted. Jimo's whole body trembled and he straightened his back. "Boss, you're too jumpy. You don't have a long time." No matter what he did, it would only last for a few days. Once it's gone, you'll forget about it. Because you're too open-minded, if you continue like this, you'll never reach the peak. So, from now on, you have to focus on changing this aspect. I'll give Yang Ao a plan for this later. She'll be in charge of urging you to change. Mo Tianji almost spat out the wine in his mouth. Huyen Ao urging Jimo. Chu Yang's move was really a stroke of genius. You can't focus on controlling the sword, but the sword is still your focus. Your goal is to chase after Jiyu Duxing. This is your lifelong goal. No matter how far Jiyu Duxing goes, you have to chase after him with all your might. Remember, I'll only allow you to be 3 levels behind him. If you surpass the 4th level, it's up to you. Chu Yang's voice was very cold. Ji Mo only felt a surge of hot blood in his heart. If second brother Ji Yu surpasses the 4th step, then I, Ji Mo, don't need to live anymore. He's already at the 4th rank. Moreover, Duxing will be able to break through to the 4th rank of Sword Emperor in half a year's time. Therefore, you must break through to the Emperor level within these 6 months. Then, you must break through to the 2nd grade of the Emperor level. We must do it. Ji Mo shouted. Du Xing, if you're waiting for him because of your brotherhood, then you'll also be done for, Chu Yang said. I will teach him a lesson. Let him know that he has to pay a price for chasing after me. Ji Yu Du Xing faintly smiled. It's over. It seems that third brother Ji won't even have the time to consummate his marriage. Luo Kudi winked. Huyen Ao's face turned red as she glared at Luo Kudi. To ensure that Miss Ao's advice is effective, I suggest we get married immediately after we return. Chu Yang said, regarding this matter, Mo Tianji will act as the matchmaker. Ji Yu Du Xing will act as the person. After the 2 clans contact each other, we'll quickly settle this matter. All the brothers were stunned. Mo Tianji is the matchmaker, Ji Yu Duxing is the matchmaker. What are you doing? You're the boss. But Chu Yang obviously didn't want to waste any more words on this matter. Then, he changed his target. Luo Kudi, your goal is even simpler. Keep up with Ji Mo and advance side by side. Let him surpass you by 2 ranks, then you can go home and sleep. If you can't even keep up with Ji Mo, then you're really useless. There's no future for you to mingle among the brothers. Chu Yang said coldly. Luo Kudi's face turned pale for a moment, then it turned red. It was as if he had been thrown into an ice cave and then fished out of it. Then, he was thrown into the mouth of a volcano. How can I not even keep up with third brother Ji? Boss, don't look down on me. Luo Kudi said angrily. Whether you can keep up or not, it's not a matter of words. Chu Yang said coldly. You, little wolf. You think you can keep up with me? Ji Mo sneered and looked at him disdainfully. Luo Kudi was furious and glared at him. Mo Tianji sighed in his heart. Chu Yang didn't even mention the upper 3 heavens or dominating the heavens because that goal was too far away. Instead, it was easy to be frightened. It was just that the brothers they were most familiar with set the goal, made them feel that they were within reach. That was why they put in 1,000 times more effort. In other words, Chu Yang was using the brotherhood that everyone cherished the most to force them to change. If you don't change and improve, then I'm sorry, please leave our circle of brothers. If this was said a year ago, even if everyone felt uncomfortable, they wouldn't do anything. But now, during this period of time, the brothers had already become an inseparable group. If they left in humiliation because they were not strong enough, everyone wouldn't be able to bear it. But Mo Tianji also broke out in cold sweat. Although the goal of catching up with Ji Yu Duxing was real, it was actually more difficult than dominating the heavens. This was a sword sovereign that was hard to come by in 1,000 years. Ao Xieyun. Chu Yang turned around. Since you treat me as a brother, I'll also make a plan for you. Ao Xieyun said calmly, I will definitely abide by boss's word. You have too many distracting thoughts and it's not good for your cultivation, so you must abandon them. You are now at the same level as Ji Mo and Luo Kudi. So, your goal is to not fall behind the 2 of them at any time. If you can't surpass them, then it's your failure. If you are still left behind by them, then it's your elimination. Chu Yang's voice was firm. This sentence caused the 3 of them to feel indignant at the same time. Xiedan Qiong. Chu Yang said calmly, you are different from others. You are an introvert and actually already have your own goal. It's just that you are not clear about it yet. Xiedan Qiong said respectfully, please advise me, boss. When your viburnum flower is released, your face is full of murderous intent and your eyes are also full of murderous intent. Your whole body has the aura of a butcher. Chu Yang said, this is the lowest level of viburnum flowers. The lowest level? Xiedan Qiong muttered to himself. When your heart is as still as water and your eyes are calm when you release the viburnum flower, then you will be at the second level. When you release the viburnum flower and feel happy, then you will be at the third level. When you release the viburnum flower and feel the joy of the viburnum flower, then you will be at the fourth level. When you release the viburnum flower and feel the joy in your heart, from your eyes to your whole body, blooming like a viburnum flower, then you will have reached the pinnacle of viburnum flowers. At that time, you will naturally have a new understanding. Chu Yang said, but that goal is too far away. You'd better take it step by step. Xiedan Qiong pondered for a long time and said, I will remember. Mo Tianji, Jiyu Duxing and the others secretly clicked their tongues. At first glance, Xiedan Qiong's cultivation was very simple and only his face and eyes changed. But thinking carefully, it was creepy. When the viburnum flower was released, it was to kill. Without murderous intent, how could it kill? To practice until the viburnum flower was released, what kind of state of mind was this? The experience during this period was enough to make a person go back and forth in the 18 levels of hell. After Chu Yang finished, he didn't speak anymore. Xiedan Feng kept waiting for him to speak, but he didn't. She couldn't help but feel anxious. She asked, Big Brother Chu, you have told everyone. Why not Tan Tan? Chu Yang smiled bitterly. Tan Tan has his own path. I can't make a plan for him. He sighed deeply in his heart. Not only can I not make a plan for Tan Tan's goal, but I also can't make a plan for his marriage. Who knows what kind of awakening will be like? If I forcibly tie Xiedan Feng and Tan Tan together, and there will be a tragedy in the future, what should I do? Chu Yang didn't have the slightest confidence in this matter. What about me? Xiedan Feng asked. Follow your heart. Chu Yang thought for a long time. Then, he said these words in a deep voice, but, no matter what choice you make, don't regret it in the future. Don't have any regrets. Xiedan Feng's face lit up. Suddenly, she hugged Tan Tan's hand and said loudly, no matter where you go, I will follow you. I won't leave your side. Tan Tan giggled foolishly and said happily, you are so annoying. Mo Tianji remained silent and waited. But, Chu Yang didn't say the words he wanted to hear the most. Mo Tianji's heart gradually sank. He couldn't help but ask tentatively, what about the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? What about the Heavenly Armament Pavilion? When Chu Yang heard this, he immediately became excited. He happily raised his eyebrows and said, Tianji is indeed Tianji. You can see the crux of the matter at a glance. Jiyu Duxing will be in charge of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion for the time being. Mo Tianji will be the strategist. Brothers, let's work hard together. What about you? The brothers asked together. I am going to cultivate in seclusion. Chu Yang's face flashed. In the eyes of the brothers, there was a kind of hope and joy that came from the bottom of his heart. He said in a deep voice, this time, I came to the lake of despair the most. First, the supreme martial artist's divine sense made me feel something. It seemed to belong to the heavenly Tao. It was very ethereal and I couldn't grasp it. So, I want to cultivate in seclusion here at the lake of despair for a while. I believe that once I succeed in comprehending it, my strength will soar. I am very confident about this. Chu Yang chuckled. The brothers immediately beamed with joy. Really? This is great. Cultivate in seclusion here? Mo Tianji frowned and his heart sank. Also, when that bastard Jiyu Duxing broke through, he actually pulled me into his realm. So, my understanding of the way of the sword has also improved. Chu Yang said clearly, so, although I will need some time to cultivate in seclusion this time, I will definitely reap great benefit. That's right. Boss told me this before I broke through. Jiyu Duxing nodded. I see. Seeing Jiyu Duxing nod, everyone cheered. This time, I need absolute peace for my seclusion. Chu Yang said, so, when you go down the mountain tomorrow, leave some resources for me. I won't go down with you. I will cultivate in seclusion on the mountain. He raised his eyebrows and his eyes turned cold. I will say the ugly words first. I don't know how long this seclusion will take. Will it be a few days or a few months? But when I come out of seclusion, if your strength is still the same, you know what I mean. The brothers laughed and said, when the time comes, You will definitely see us in a different light. Let's wait and see. Chu Yang looked at everyone with suspicion and ridicule. It's a deal. Luo Kudi and the others raised their chests. The tent was filled with jubilation. Everyone was beaming with joy. Mo Tianji's face was very gloomy. His hand that was holding the wine cup trembled. He felt as if his heart had fallen from a cliff and suddenly sank. He felt a sharp pain. Could it be that Chu Yang has already finished settling his affairs? My heart hurts to find out that my monthly votes have been destroyed. This really makes me sad. Chapter 7:15. In the morning. The group started to descend the mountain. Chu Yang was full of joy as he bid farewell to his brothers. Everyone patted his shoulders and laughed. The group gradually left. The world returned to silence. The side of the Lake of Despair was clean. Not even a trace of blood was left. Snow started to fall from the sky again. Chu Yang smiled and walked back calmly. Only a tent was left. The brothers worked together and firmly set up the tent before they left. More than half of the tent was buried in the snow. Such a tent would only be destroyed by the wind. It would never be blown away. Inside, there were piles of food and wine. It was enough for Chu Yang to use for half a year. On the coffee table at the side, there were lamps and flints. These were more than enough for a year. Top-quality animal skins covered the entire tent from the ceiling to the walls and even the ground. Chu Yang lay on the animal skins and thought for a long time. Jiyu Duxing is in charge and Mo Tianji is in charge. I'm at ease. You all have your own goals. I'm also at ease. In the future, even without me, you can roam freely in the heavenly layer. As for Mo Qingwu, let's not talk about her. With Mo Tianji as her elder brother, he would never mistreat his younger sister. With Tan Tan, who was about to awaken as the Demon King, Meng Chao Rant's wish wouldn't be a problem. As for the rest, you're at ease, right? Chu Yang smiled faintly. His eyes were filled with melancholy. In this life, I've made up for all my regrets, right? There's nothing else that I can't forget. It's a pity that I've never stayed in my mother's arms for even a moment. Mother, I don't even know what you're like. The water in the Lake of Despair was boiling more and more. It was as if there was something at the bottom of the lake that was calling out to it. The sword tip of the Calamity Sword, the sword blade. The sword edge began to move intensely and anxiously. Chu Yang had a feeling that he couldn't suppress it. The space was tangled. She was also flipping the screen. The sword spirit was nowhere to be found. I'm at ease. Chu Yang lay quietly. He didn't move. From dawn to dusk, he felt the Calamity Sword's movement in his body. His heart was clear. He couldn't control it. Chu Yang could feel that his body was no longer under his control. He was walking towards the Lake of Despair step by step. He was being sucked in. It was over. However, the sword spirit's last words had left Chu Yang without the slightest bit of hope in his heart. This time, your chances of surviving this great tribulation are definitely not more than 5%. Even. There wasn't even a 1 in 10,000 chance. Therefore, Chu Yang had asked the sword spirit for a favor. Using all of the sword spirit's divine power to help him suppress the Calamity Sword's abnormal movements, and then providing him with a strong spiritual power, he used the method of severe warning to make his brother firmly remember what he said today. That was their life goal. Originally, Chu Yang had wanted to get a few sets of mental cultivation and martial arts that were suitable for his brothers to practice. However, the sword spirit fell into a deep slumber after doing all this. Its godly power had been completely exhausted. This time, the sword spirit was able to accept it. Anyway, Chu Yang won't be able to survive. So, I'll still have to fall into a deep sleep. He slept for 10,000 years. If Chu Yang can endure it, then I can wake up at any time as Chu Yang's cultivation progresses. Night fell on the land again. Clang. The Calamity Sword's sword tip shone brightly. It jumped out of Chu Yang's dantian and flew around Chu Yang's body. Clang. The Calamity Sword's blade also came out of Chu Yang's body and shone with a majestic light. Whoosh. The Calamity Sword's blade flashed coldly on the surface of Chu Yang's body. The three parts of the sword let out a clear sword cry. Suddenly, there was a huge storm in the lake of despair. A sound like a dragon's roar seemed to ring out from the depths of one's spirit. In the lake of despair, a sword light suddenly rushed out of the water like a dragon emerging from the sea. It carried with it thunder and lightning. The two supreme martial artists released their divine senses at the same time and faced this sword light. With a loud bang, the divine senses of the two supreme level experts suddenly vanished like smoke in thin air. Then, a sword light flew up as if it was cutting through the blue dome of heaven. In an unknown place far away, two people opened their eyes at the same time. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. Then, they spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Who's so powerful? Could it be a god? Both of them said at the same time. Their gazes were heavy and serious. He destroyed their divine senses with one strike. What kind of cultivation was this? Both of them turned their heads at the same time and looked at a place in the void with conflicting gazes. Over there, in the distant past, both of them had left their divine senses there. Let's go and take a look. A thunderclap exploded in mid-air. The entire dark sky suddenly split into two different colors. Half of it was bright as day. The other half was pitch black. It was almost transparent. The sword roared like a dragon and rushed into the cloud. With a loud rumble, the entire level heavens continent trembled in unison. Countless mountains and valleys collapsed at this moment. Countless snowy mountains and icy peaks collapsed at the same time. Such a scene happened in the upper three heavens, lower three heavens, and upper three heavens. The sword tip let out a long cry, the sword edge let out a long cry, and the sword blade let out a sharp whistle. Three sword lights entwined up at the same time. 4 streaks of sword light circled in the air, cutting the night sky into pieces. After a long time, the sword lights flashed and formed streaks of lightning that connected the heavens and the earth. Night fell again. In the pitch-black night sky, 4 sword lights crisscrossed to form a character. Come. Chu Yang laughed and floated out of the tent. His gaze became steady at this moment. No hope. Hehe, even if there's only a 1 in a million chance, will I, Chu Yang, give up? Death is one thing, but the destruction of my divine senses is nothing more than this. But before I die, I, Chu Yang, am still Chu Yang. I'm still the owner of the Calamity Sword. I'm coming. Chu Yang laughed and leaped up. He welcomed the strong suction force and flew like a dragon in the sky. In a flash, he landed in the Lake of Despair. In the Lake of Despair, where waves were surging, the sword lights in mid-air disappeared instantly. The sword tip, sword edge, and sword blade pounced into their mother's embrace. They followed behind Chu Yang and entered the Lake of Despair. The Lake of Despair was surging like a raging ocean. In an instant, it became as smooth as a mirror. Even. There were no ripples on the surface of the water. Everything returned to normal. It was as if nothing had happened. The commotion here caused the entire heavens to be in an uproar. Almost everyone in the heavens saw the huge word in the sky at the same time. Come. Come where? Come what? Everyone looked up at the sky in unison. Chu Feiling and Yang Ruolan were so tired that they didn't even look human. Even with their cultivation, they felt as if their legs were filled with lead. They were still 2,500 miles away from the heavenly sword peak. At this moment, the sky flashed crazily. The two of them saw the huge word in the sky. Come. What happened? At this moment, the two of them fell to the ground due to the shock brought by the huge word. This word seems to be in the direction of the heavenly sword peak. Chu Feiling looked at the huge word and said solemnly, "What?" Yang Ruolan jumped up. Did something happen at the heavenly sword peak? Let's go quickly. The two of them jumped up. They didn't care about their clan's reputation anymore. After running for some distance, they discovered a caravan. They immediately went forward to snatch 2 horses and galloped away. The big clans in the upper 3 heavens became worried at the same time. Come. In a secret courtyard in the Zhuge clan, an elder in hemp clothes sighed deeply. In the Zhuge clan's hall, someone was flipping through the clan's records. On the first page, the diary left behind by the first ancestor of the Zhuge clan. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, there was a strange phenomenon in the sky. A word-eye spanned across the sky. The wise men of the Zhuge clan all had solemn expressions. The Yi clan was the most powerful clan among the big dominating clans. They also opened a book made of purple crystal pages. This book was the size of a room. Just this book made of purple crystal was a treasure trove of vitality, but only one book was made. Every page was filled with words that were carved with the tip of a sword. This was the true record of the heavens. It was the life of the heavens ruler, the Calamity Sword Master. Here, there's a record here. Someone pointed to a small paragraph of writing on the second page. An elder with silver hair and beard looked at this line of small words. He seemed to feel the crisscrossing sword aura of the writer and read it out softly with a respectful expression. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a huge word appeared in the heavens and earth, sword. This word connects the heavens and earth. Everyone's expressions were solemn. They turned another page. There's more here. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a huge word appeared in the heavens, Master. Page 1. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a huge word appeared in the heavens and earth, heaven. Page 8. Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Sword of Calamity. Strange phenomena appeared in the heavens, shocking the entire world. The sword light formed a large character that shone with boundless radiance, illuminating the heavens, earth. Page 10. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a huge word appeared, who. Page 12. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a word appeared, can. Page 14. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, a word appeared in the heavens and earth, obstruck. Page 10. When the Lord Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, thousands of mountains collapsed and the heavens passageway was completely blocked for 3 months. Up and down were not connected. At that time, a word appeared in the heavens, I. When the white-bearded elder saw this, he let out a long sigh. After a long time, his eyes were lifeless as he said in a heavy voice, "Do you see it? This is the life history of the previous 8 masters of the Calamity Sword. Moreover, the clearest record is the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword. There is no description of the other fragments. The previous 8 masters of the Sword Master each had a word. When combined, it was, the Sword Master of the heavens and earth, who can stop me? Now, another word appeared in the heavens and earth. It is come. This means that the current master of the Calamity Sword, the first generation, has obtained the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword. When the first and second words are combined, it is a complete sentence. The Sword Master of the heavens and earth, who can stop me? The calamity has begun. The silver-haired elder let out a long sigh. Where should the Yi clan go from here? Everyone was dumbstruck at the same time. Chapter 7:16. Old Ancestor, the current head of the Yi clan, Yi Bu Kong, had always been eloquent and scheming, but at this moment, he actually stuttered. Let's wait and see. The old ancestor let out a long sigh. This old ancestor was the spiritual pillar of the Yi clan. His cultivation had already reached a frightening level. 3,000 years ago, he had already stepped into the ranks of the supreme beings. He was as famous as Ning Qianya and Bu Liu Qing back then. From this, it could be seen how terrifying the old ancestor of the Lu clan was. Including the other members of the Yi clan who appeared in this room, every one of them was a senior expert. The one with the lowest seniority was the current head of the Yi clan, Yi Bu Kong. These people had not appeared in the past few decades or hundreds of years. Ordinary members of the Yi clan didn't even know that there were such existences in their clan, let alone seeing them. However, when the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword caused the phenomenon of heaven and earth, these people, no matter where they were in seclusion, all rushed here at the same time. It could be seen how serious the matter was and how serious it had become. As members of the ruling clans who were familiar with the Calamity Sword's master, these senior experts all firmly remembered one thing. the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword was the true beginning of the turning point of the heavenly layer. When the Calamity Sword's master obtained the fourth fragment, the heavenly layer would truly be turbulent. No matter how many clans had been passed down for tens of thousands of years, they would be tossed about in the wind and rain at this moment. No one could guarantee that their own Quan clan would be able to survive the cleansing of the Calamity Sword's master. In other words, from this moment on, the Calamity Sword's master would start a fight to the death with the ruling clans. Because the appearance of the fourth fragment meant that the Calamity Sword's master had successfully found his tribulations, his claws and fangs, a character who could overturn rivers and seas, the next head of the ruling clans. In other words, none of the existing ruling clans would be chosen. They would definitely be mortal enemies. At this moment, the ruling clans who still had some hope in their hearts felt as if their hearts had fallen into a bottomless abyss. Think of a way to find this Calamity Sword's master and destroy him. Yi Bu Kong thought silently. Don't think about destroying the Calamity Sword's master now. You won't be able to find him. You won't be able to. The ancestor of the Yi clan, Yi Chun Chiu, rolled his eyes. He seemed to have seen through Yi Bu Kong's thoughts. He specifically warned, for the past 10,000 years, there have been many clans who have been trying to do this. However, those clans who have this idea are usually the first to be destroyed. Moreover, the Calamity Sword Master is mysterious. I'm afraid that even his subordinates don't know his true identity. If you want to kill him, you have to kill everyone in the upper and lower heavens. Moreover, with the appearance of the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword, the mysteries of heaven are completely obscured. No one is allowed to pry into it. The most important thing is the fourth fragment of the Sword of Calamity. It will completely seal off the sky. After a month, there won't be a single path that can be used. No one knows whether Master Tribulation is in the upper three heavens, the lower three heavens, or the lower three heavens. Because Calamity Sword's master has a special privilege that surpasses ours. Before the second sword fragment appears, the passageway to the heavens cannot be opened. Yi Chun Chiu said slowly, if you want to kill Sword Master Jie, you have to wait until he comes to Shang Three Heavens. This was the will of heaven. Anyone who disobeys will die. I see. Yi Bu Kong fell into deep thought. Ancestor, this is really strange. It's clear that the heavens are protecting Sword Master Jie. Yi Chun Chiu's face darkened. All the seniors of the Yi clan looked over with burning gazes. There was strong dissatisfaction in their eyes. Yi Bu Kong was nervous. Did I say something wrong? Yi Chun Chiu rolled his eyes and looked at Yi Bu Kong with ghastly eyes. They flickered like phosphorescent flames. He gritted his teeth and said, "Bastard." He flicked his sleeves and left. Yi Bu Kong was stunned on the spot. Did I say something wrong? The seniors of the Yi clan all flicked their sleeves and left. The last one was finally stopped by Yi Bu Kong. Grandfather, why? The old man shook his head and said sadly, you destroyed the Yi clan. Yi Bu Kong was stunned. The old man pointed at the amethyst book and said, how many times have you read this book? Yi Bu Kong's face changed drastically. The old man laughed coldly. Since ancient times, who has been able to live for more than 10,000 years? Who knows what happened 10,000 years ago, or even 10,000 years ago? However, it's all recorded and memorized bit by bit. Today, you actually asked such a childish question. It's clear that you haven't read this book. He sighed. This amethyst book has recorded everything. Besides the enforcers, there's no third book in the world. Such a peerless treasure has been in your hands for 100 years, and you haven't even looked at it. The old man snorted angrily and suddenly disappeared. Yi Bu Kong was shocked and lost. He was the only one left in the hall. He moved closer and slowly read from the first page, starting from the first word. Slowly, his face became paler and paler. This was an encyclopedia about Sword Master Jie that had been buried for tens of thousands of years. Yi Bu Kong looked up and sighed. He was extremely depressed. So, it's all here, but, can you blame me for this? This had always been the most important treasure of the Yi clan. Usually, One would have to go through more than 10 checkpoints to enter. Even the head of the Yi clan couldn't enter for no reason. Who would have thought that such an earth-shattering thing was recorded in this book? Just as he was sighing, a shout came from afar and entered his ears. The heaven passage will be sealed within a month. Quickly gather your men and return to the Yi clan. No one is allowed to stay outside. Yi Bu Kong was shocked awake. Yi Chun Chiu seemed to be sighing softly in the sky. This is the turning point of life, one by one, one by one, one by one, one by one. Yi Bu Kong was stunned again. A turning point of life. The Sword Master Jie has already appeared. According to what you said, the aristocratic families are definitely going to die. What's there to turn around for? However, another order came from the sky. Send a message to the other 8 aristocratic families. All the elders are to discuss important matters in the Yi clan within 3 days. Prepare to stop the Sword Master Jie. At the same time, the rulers of the aristocratic families all fell into insomnia. Everyone's minds went blank at the same time. Where should they go? No one expected the Sword Master Jie to come so quickly this time. The first Sword Master Jie spent 10 years to obtain the 4th fragment of the Sword Master Jie after a strange phenomenon appeared on the first fragment of the Sword Master Jie. The second Sword Master Jie also took 70 years. Even the 8th Master of Calamity Sword took 20 years. However, the current Master of Calamity Sword took less than 3 years. Is he a monster? All the aristocratic families started to feel uneasy. It was as if a storm was coming. In an instant, it filled the upper 3 heavens. At this moment, they received a message from the Yi clan. The 8 aristocratic families didn't do anything on the surface, but everyone who was qualified to know all this knew that their elders had already rushed to the Yi clan. The Sword Master Jie obtaining the 4th fragment of the Sword Master Jie was a matter of life and death for the aristocratic families. At the same time, the aristocratic families all sent out an order. All the members outside were to return immediately. Those who disobeyed would be killed without mercy. At the same time, the Heaven Enforcers. This was an ice mountain. The entire ice mountain seemed to have been hollowed out. Inside, a white light flashed. Waves of fragrant fragrance spread out in an elegant manner. Taking a closer look, there was actually a large cluster of beautiful snow lotuses every 100 feet on the ground. Each snow lotus was snow white and as big as a silver plate. Each petal seemed to be made of gold and jade, giving off a sparkling and translucent glow. They were actually huge stalks of snow lotuses that were connected together to form a tea table. This snow lotus was called the 1,000-year ice lotus. It would sprout for 100 years, sprout for 100 years, grow for 100 years, and bud for 100 years. However, it would take another 100 years for the bud to bloom. After 2,000 years, it would be as clear as jade and as tough as it was now. This was definitely a heavenly spiritual medicine. It was a sacred healing medicine. Every stalk was extremely expensive outside, and it was priceless. Who would have thought that it would only exist as a tea table here? This extravagance could be said to be earth-shattering. At the highest position, on a platform that was 1 foot above the ground, a white-robed man stood with his hands behind his back facing the door. He didn't move and seemed to be deep in thought. His black hair was like a waterfall, and his white robe was whiter than snow. His neck, wrists, ears, and other skin were all shining with a smooth luster. It was like the skin of a 17 or 18-year-old youth. His fingers were slender and delicate. It could be imagined that these 10 fingers were absolutely incomparably nimble. Whether it was holding a sharp sword or taking a life, it was all done with ease and effortlessly. His eyes were even colder than an iceberg. Although he didn't move, his body was also very thin and frail. But when he stood there, it was as if all the lights in the hall had turned into dense dark clouds that were brewing a storm in the sky. Even the extravagant decorations seemed to have turned into ordinary grass and flowers under his shadow. There was no aura of a peerless treasure. Footsteps sounded softly. People filed into this extremely luxurious ice palace. No one made a sound, but they all stood behind the ice lotus tea tables. When the 30 tea tables were all filled with people, The man who was standing with his hands behind his back finally turned around and said calmly, "Sit." Although he had turned around and there was no veil covering his face, there seemed to be a thick fog that would never disperse in front of his face, concealing his appearance within the dense fog. No one could see clearly. The Calamity Sword Master has already come into contact with the fourth fragment of the Calamity Sword. The white-robed man's voice was calm and cold, without any fluctuation, joy, or anger. It was as if he was talking about something that wasn't worth making a fuss about. So, from this moment on, the aristocratic families are no longer under our control. Chapter 717. From now on, before heaven calms down, the law enforcement officers will give up on law enforcement. Heaven will enter a chaotic era of sword masters. The white-robed man's eyes were very cold as he glanced at the faces of the 30 people below. If the hall was originally peaceful and quiet, then after this sentence, it was completely frozen. Everyone was dumbfounded at the same time. 30 pairs of eyes looked at the white-robed man in disbelief. Such expressions appeared on the faces of these people. This was definitely something that could shock the whole world, because those who were qualified to stand here were at least at the 5th stage of martial saint. There were even a few supreme martial artists among them. It could be said that in the past 10,000 years, ever since the establishment of the law enforcement officers, the power of the law enforcement officers had never been as strong as this batch. But it was these super experts who could remain indifferent even when a mountain collapsed in front of them and the sky collapsed in front of them. Now, they were showing extreme shock in their lives. This was very likely to be the only time in their lives that they would experience such a thing. Their shocked expressions lasted for a breath. Then, everyone's faces returned to normal. Many of them were deep in thought, and many of them were suspicious. There were even 2 people whose eyes were filled with anger. "I object." The white-robed young man standing at the front raised his eyebrows. His eyes were burning as he took a step forward. Beside him, a beautiful woman with hair as long as the clouds smiled quietly and took a step forward to express her support. "Why do you object?" The white-robed man looked at the person who spoke coldly. He naturally knew that although this guy looked young, he was indeed an old and immortal fellow. The white-robed young man, Yu Lingxue. This was a very feminine name. It was said that Yu Lingshue's father was an erudite scholar at that time. At that time, he already had 3 sons and longed for a daughter. So, before she went into labor, he even named her. In the end, she was born a son. He was greatly disappointed. At that time, the wife of Yu Lingshue's sworn brother was also about to go into labor. The 2 families agreed that if they were both daughters, they would be sisters. If they were a man and a woman, they would be husband and wife. And these 2 families, one was surnamed Yu and the other was surnamed Feng. Moreover, Yu Lingshue's father liked snow. The father of the Feng clan was also a learned scholar who liked wind and rain. Drunken moon listens to the snow, gentle wind listens to the rain. This was also the realm that the 2 great Confucian scholars pursued their entire lives, to drink with friends, to lie under the moon, to listen to the sounds of nature, as snowflakes gently drifted down. Leaning against the window, facing the wind, listening to the drizzle, heaven and earth gentle. This was a poetic sentiment that the 2 of them had longed for their entire lives and had pursued for their entire lives. Therefore, both parties had decided on a name before the child was born. The members of the Yu clan, regardless of gender, were all called Yu Lingxue. The Feng family, regardless of gender, would be called Feng Yuro. Now, the woman in white standing beside Yu Lingxue was like a gentle spring rain and wind. She was his wife, Feng Yuro. Both husband and wife were supreme beings. Not only did the 2 inherit their father's knowledge and talent, they also became a pair of sword guts and zither heart. The Dharma Supreme had worked with the 2 of them for so many years, so he naturally knew that this Yu Lingxue, who was like a youth in white, was, in fact, an extremely demonic character. He had only lost once in several thousand years, and that was to Ning Tianya. That time, he had battled with Ning Tianya for 3 months, and Ning Tianya had won by 1 move. However, he had retreated completely unscathed. Just this terrifying cultivation alone was enough to make anyone look at him in a different light. In fact, if Feng Yuro was also present then, when the couple battled with Ning Qianye would have no choice but to flee. Lord Dharma Supreme, this doesn't seem right, right? Yu Lingshue's eyes narrowed into two sharp swords. Law enforcement officers are the rules of the Tribulation Sword Master. They control the laws of the heavens. Since when did they rule that when the Tribulation Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Tribulation Sword, he had to wash his hands of it? The Dharma Supreme snorted and said indifferently, that was then, and this is now. Law enforcement officers are the greatest help to the Tribulation Sword Master. At the very least, they have to allow the Tribulation Sword Master to grow. The stone tablet is still standing at the back of the hall. Its divine power has yet to fade. Yu Lingxue said seriously, Lord Dharma Supreme, are you going to go against the rules today? When he spoke, Feng Yuro didn't say a word. She just stood quietly beside her husband, her expression still tranquil. No matter what decision her husband made, she could only support him. The white-robed Dharma Supreme said indifferently, however, the stone tablet has also ruled that the chaotic times of the heavens will inevitably arise. As long as the Tribulation Sword Master causes chaos, we law enforcement officers can only retreat. However, the rules say that we can only wash our hands of it after the Tribulation Sword Master obtained the fourth fragment of the Tribulation Sword. Yu Lingshue's gaze was sharp as he said, but now, from the looks of the heavens, we have only just obtained the fourth fragment. The Dharma Supreme was still indifferent. So what? If you give up from the fourth fragment, you are undoubtedly giving up on the justice of the heavens and our original position. You want us law enforcement officers to turn from supporting the Tribulation Sword Master to opposing him? The Dharma Supreme was silent for a while before he said, there is no need to discuss this anymore. I have already made up my mind. Lingxue, I will talk to you later. You are stubborn. Yu Lingxue frowned slightly and said unhappily, don't forget, even the heavens cannot stop the power of the tribulation. Do you want the law enforcement officers who have been passed down for 10,000 years to be destroyed in your hands? That may not be so. The Dharma Supreme's voice became a little deep. Don't forget, there is also this part in the prophecy. Tribulation becomes nothing, humans and ghosts walk the same path. The Sword Master of the heavens, heaven and earth walk the same path. So you think that the law enforcement officers will definitely be destroyed by the Tribulation Sword Master? Yu Lingxue sneered. You need to calm down. The Dharma Supreme's eyes flashed, somewhat displeased. No matter what, my husband will definitely not accept this order of the Dharma Supreme. The Dharma Supreme nodded slowly and said, if that is the case, then so be it. His eyes flashed like lightning and he said solemnly, how many others do not agree? Everyone below looked at each other, but no one spoke. A few people's eyes shone intensely, as if they were tempted, but they still lowered their heads in the end. Yu Lingxue laughed. You all still want to continue to rule the heavens and are unwilling to take the risk of giving up power. He laughed heartily and said, since that's the case, there's no need for us to work together. The two of us will take our leave for now. Yu Lingshue's ice-cold eyes swept across and he took his wife's hand. Both of their figures suddenly melted like ice and snow, disappearing without a trace in this hall. They only left behind a faintly discernible sentence. Dharma Supreme, law enforcement officers are law enforcement officers. It is precisely because of the existence of the Tribulation Sword Master above the law enforcement officers that the law enforcement officers are not rulers. They are only tools, nothing more. If you do not want the law enforcement officers to overturn the ruling power, I'm afraid there will be a day when it will be too late for regret. I only hope that the law enforcement officers will not become a place where people fight for power and profit. You are on your own. His voice kept echoing in the hall, but everyone knew that Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro were already thousands of miles away. That's good too. The Dharma Supreme's eyes shone. After a long time, he sighed softly and said, both of you, you are on your own too. His eyes flashed sharply, and then he lowered his gaze, seemingly indifferent to Yu Lingxue and Feng Yuro's departure. He said, act according to my orders immediately. Yes. Deputy, you stay for a while. Okay. Yes, Moon Breeze, understood. I will do it right away. Not long after, with a sudden sound, the entire ice peak between heaven and earth suddenly disappeared. It seemed to have melted into the air. The strong fragrance of ice lotus floated in the air, not dissipating for a long time, turning into spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Dooku followed behind the Lee clan and actually could not find them. The various clans and law enforcement officers were all hurrying along together, and they were not far from each other, only a few 100 feet apart. The security was tight. And the Lee clan was actually walking behind the law enforcement officers. The other clans were all monitoring the Lee clan's movements. And the law enforcement officers were monitoring the movements of everyone in the clans. Everything was linked together. Furthermore, Dooku discovered something strange, and that was, it seemed like everyone in the clans had other tasks on their shoulders. Along the way, everyone was distracted, but they had no choice but to hurry back. This was because the law enforcement officers did not allow them to act rashly. This way, Dooku's chances of completing his mission will be even lower. Seeing that they were about to reach the entrance of the upper and lower heavens, Dooku was very anxious. Could it be that I can't complete such a simple task? The other clans were also helpless. These law enforcement officers are following us like ghosts. How can we complete the task given by our clans? Only Dong Wushang and the other two who were following the law enforcement officers were excited. We are about to enter the upper three heavens. Finally, Dooku could not take it anymore and decided to take the risk. Li Xiong too was on Li Bietian's back the whole time, and did not leave for even a moment. Li Bietian had even rejected the help of two of his guards. This was because he knew that his current cultivation was not as good as these two experts of his clan. If there was any danger, with Dong Wushang on their backs, their fighting strength would be greatly reduced. This seemingly arrogant and despotic Dooku was very meticulous. There was no doubt about it. Dooku could not find an opportunity, and he could not take it anymore. Finally, he decided to take action. Suddenly, the heavens and earth shook, and the entire world was filled with sword light. In the sky, a huge character flashed in front of them. Everyone changed at the same time. They all stood still and looked up at the sky, deep in thought. In the next moment, everyone floated up to the treetops and looked into the distance. Li Bietian also wanted to jump up and take a look, but just as he was about to leap, a low voice said, "Wait." Li Bietian and the other two were stunned, and they turned around. They saw a black-clothed masked person suddenly appear 30 feet in front of them like a ghost. His eyes were quietly looking at Li Xiong too, who was on Li Bietian's back. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.